press conference in London ahead of Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. I am with, of course, the main event himself, Castillo. Castillo,
Big man ting.
crazy last 24 hours or so.
Definitely a crazy 24 hours. Right now, Rob's got the phone up, bruv. We're waiting for the breaking news right now. Right now, it's not looking good, bruv. You get me? It's looking a bit mad.
Yeah, I've got the phone out. I'm going to try and hopefully keep people up to date with what's going on with Eddie Hearn. I do apologise for the speed in which I'm talking. I probably worked about 20-something hours in the last 24 hours with about 3 hours sleep. What did you get up to last night, Castillo?
Last night, bruv, like, just had a sandwich, bruv, and some Thai sweet McCoy crisp, bruv. It was lavish.
You need to be getting like some sort of deal with McCoy's crisp.
Big man thing. No shout out to them, by the way. We take that back because they ain't paying me. But like literally, right now, tell us what's been going on. Like literally, it's madness right now. What is happening today?
It's a good question. I'm going to kind of give people a little bit of a rundown as to the last hour or so, because, I mean, anything before that, I mean, as I'm talking now and refreshing Twitter, everything that we're kind of saying is as it's happening. But the last hour or so since we've been at the press conference, I had a source tell me that it was 70-30 against the fight happening. That was about 5 minutes before I arrived at the press conference, and I was told by Wally Downs of The Sun, who reported that it was 100% happening, either under the British Boxing Board of Control, Bieber, not Justin, the Luxembourg Board of Control, the Maltese Board of Control, or some other board of control. About 10 minutes after that, I was told by somebody else that the fight wasn't going to go ahead. And then I was told by somebody else that it was 100% going ahead. Whether or not it was under Bieber, all of those other governing bodies, Riaf, who I kind of butcher his surname.
So right now, how big is this? We talked earlier on, and you said that this could be one of the biggest.
This is the biggest story I've ever been involved with during my time covering the sport. Eddie Hearn has just arrived outside. When he walks past Castillo, because he doesn't like me, but he likes you. Can you grab him and say, Eddie, have you got any update of what's going on? Big man ting, all of the good stuff. Charm him. So he's just there. You can walk over to him with the microphone as well and say, Eddie, have you got 2 minutes to join us live?
Where's Eddie right now?
If I go up to him, mate, he'll hit me. So he's outside now. He's just speaking. No. Just wait here because he's going to come in at some point. So as he walks past there, I'm going to keep an eye on him, Castillo. So anyway, this is very predatory. But anyway, what we were going back to...
I was trying to get me buoyed off by Eddie, brother. It's a bit mad still. I was trying it, bro. That's my guy, though. Big man.
He likes you, though. And then we saw the tweet from Eddie Hearn, which said, let me be clear, if this fight isn't sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control, there is no way we go ahead under a foreign sanctioning body. The fact that Eddie is here leads me to believe that it could be back on again. I mean, or on again, off again.
Good news today, bro. We might be getting some good news.
I mean, it really depends.
Fans, you never know.
It really depends. I mean, good news for people who want to see the fight, but bad news for people who maybe don't want to see the fight and want to see the integrity of the sport upheld if indeed Conor Benn is found to be guilty of using performance-enhancing drugs. Just trying to keep an eye on Mr. Hearn
Allegedly, bro.
Allegedly, always looking out for the legal interests of ID Boxing and Rob. Castillo, do you want to see the fight?
Do you know what? I do want to see the fight. I'm in two minds in it, because on one half, I really want to see it. They've put in the hard work to get it. You get me? But at the same time, like, we've seen a lot of tragedies in boxing. Gerald McKellen, you get me? Watson. There's too many to name.
Nick
like,
Blackwell.
I'm trying to say, yeah. Like, so on that sense, like, I don't want anybody to get hurt. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because this could happen next year.
Yeah, or towards the end of the year. And, look, it sounds very macabre of me to say that it can help enhance the fight and make the fight a bit bigger. But if and when this is rescheduled, if indeed it is off, I'm sure it won't do any harm with promoting the fight if it happens towards the end of this year or early next year. I'm just keeping eyes on Eddie at the minute. He is still out there. Just trying to keep an eye on his movements. But yeah, I mean, it's an unprecedented time in the sport. I can't remember anything like this, even remotely like this, in my time covering boxing. It's arguably the biggest story in British boxing over the last 20 odd years. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, Castillo, that even compares to this.
This is definitely like the biggest thing. I'm happy to be a part of this, but at the same time, it's crazy. Like, literally yesterday, like, shout out to Conor Benn, like I said earlier on, like, literally, he gave me a shout out yesterday, so shout out to him. But his whole mood was this. You could just tell he was a bit down, like he was a bit unhappy about it. And it's a lot of pressure for a 25-year-old. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So salute to him, bruv. But I hope he's all right. Do you get what I mean?
No, Eddie has now gone away from where we are. He's on his phone, so we're not going to be joined by Eddie Hearn. Not yet, anyway. That leads me to believe this is still very much a developing story. Well, it is a developing story. We don't have a definitive response either way. So I'm being told to slow down. I must be about 80% coffee at the minute and 20% of that King Prawn Madras last night.
You're on them cod liver oils, bruv. Relax. You get me? Big man thing. Speaking of the cod liver oils, bruv, like literally, can you tell us more about that? So I don't know what that is, bruv. I'll be honest with you. I thought it was for gal to get boobs or something, bruv. Like, what is it?
So it's clomiphene, which is Clomid is the kind of the over the counter name for it. It was quite popular. I say popular. It was rife in the NFL a couple of years ago. There was a lot of NFL players who tested positive for that. As you've sort of correctly alluded to,
Yeah.
there it's a women's fertility drug. It helps you conceive a child. The NFL players basically argued that it was for them to help conceive a child with their wife. That study is basically found to be inaccurate, and that's why they were banned. There is no legal reason for it to be in the system, certainly of an elite athlete under VADA testing or UCAD testing, but a man in general, there's no reason for that to be in there. And just to kind of give a breakdown as to what clomiphene does for yourself in a performance enhancing scent, if you're a male competitor, it's used often at the end of a testosterone cycle to re-regulate your testosterone levels back to its normal and kind of kickstart it. It's also used as a way to flush out and what we call a masking agent to mask use of other anabolic steroids. It's also used as a way to shut off the pores or the parts of your body that produce estrogen. So if your body cuts off those bits, it naturally tries to make estrogen, which then naturally tries to make testosterone. So it can also be used, it can be used with testosterone, after testosterone, or instead of testosterone. But it is very much a performance enhancing drug. There is no reason for it to be in any elite athlete system.
So far, it doesn't seem like it's anything crazy, because a lot of people just seen it and thought, you know what, well, he's come out and done the statement and said, well, I haven't been caught with anything too bad, but is it actually something that is very serious? Because when I think about performance and
Conor Benn has just walked past us, which we didn't see. He's leaving the place now. I'm going to try and get eyes on Paddy Hobbs, who shout out Paddy Hobbs, PR guy. Conor Benn is moving away with his sunglasses. I'm not sure whether or not he's getting into his car. Which is a very interesting development here from the press conference. Conor Benn, Eddie Hearn. I saw Tony Sims, of course, the trainer.
Might be going back to his yard, bruv. I'm not going to lie. We don't know. But
yeah, so he's out. He's driving around now in his Porsche KO Benn number plate. We're also seeing, this is Conor Benn's sister behind us, moving away and also going with her luggage. So this could be a developing story here, whereby there's bags that are leaving the press conference. Conor Benn has just left the press conference here live. That's a big story, a big development potentially here in the Eubank-Benn live. That says to me that I can't remember what your question was. What was your question?
He just pulled off in the whip, bruv. He's gone right now. I don't know where he's going, but it's looking mad right now, bruv. But this is what I was going to ask you is it something that is really that bad? Because when people think about PEDs, I was thinking it don't sound like a Ronnie Coleman thing, bruv. It sounds like...
It's a good question. It's a valid question. I think you hit the nail on the head by the sense of people are talking about it as a fertility drug. It's not. It's very much a performance enhancer. Anything that is used to increase testosterone in your system unnaturally by taking something is very, very serious. It's something that stays in your system for a number of months as well, which is a lot of the consternation around testing. I don't want to jump the gun here, but it looks as though Freddie Cunningham there, Anthony Joshua's manager, just walked past, give us a nice little cheeky grin. Maybe we can.
You got some serious people.
We have confirmation that Conor Benn Rolls Royce is just going past us. Is that picking up somebody? Is that Eddie Hearn? Jeff Powell from the Daily Mail just behind us. Shout out Jazzy Jeff. Always a pleasure. Jeff, do you want to jump in and join us for a couple of minutes? Is that okay?
Hey.
We'll just drop back a little bit. Jeff Powell from the Daily Mail. If you know boxing, Eddie Hearn is just returning. But if you know boxing, you know Jeff Powell. Jeff Powell, thanks very much for joining us here. What's the latest?
The latest, as far as I'm aware, is that the lawyers are looking at everything. And it's about as far as we can get, I think.
Eddie Hearn has just rejoined. He's going straight upstairs. I don't think he's in the mood to stop. Jeff, you've been around the sport for a long, long time. What do you expect to happen here?
I think is what we expect and what we think should happen, I guess. Eddie says he won't go rogue and go the route of Luxembourg and sanctioning a rogue fight. I hope he's true to his word. It's not a very pretty look for British boxing. If he doesn't do that or can't force some kind of legal action against the British Boxing Board of Control, it would happen, which I think is the best thing, that the fight is delayed for at least 4 weeks that Connor is tested at least 2 or 3 times a week in that time to make sure that anything that may be residual in his body. He protests his innocence. I hope he's right, but would ensure there's no residual testosterone in his body, if there's ever been any. And we would hope for, with that, move away from the nightmare scenario that from somewhere Connor comes up with a massive punch that puts Chris Eubank in hospital.
Yeah, I think that's a very important topic. I mean, you've been covering the sport, as I mentioned, a lot longer than I have, and certainly, yeah, you were involved in sports and involved at the very top end of sports when the tragedies with Michael Watson, with Gerald McClellan happened. How damaging would it be to British boxing if the worst were to happen and something like that was to happen on Saturday night?
Well, there was a sense of everyone being taken surprised by those two tragedies. The medical rigours were not as strongly in place. There wasn't so much information about what the damage that could be done to a man's brain in boxing. Not so much awareness of anything. So they were two horrible, horrible shocks. We've now reached a stage where the science is much, much more finite. Everybody knows the dangers. Everybody knows these dangers are massively amplified if drugs come into the equation, and therefore there's really no excuse for putting that at risk again.
I'm going to let you go, Jeff, because I know that with the developing story here, and you are one of the busiest people that I'm very fortunate to come into contact with in this crazy sport. I'm going to leave the last words with Castillo, the main event himself. What questions have you got for Jeff?
Oh, sorry.
Final question.
Yeah.
If the fight did go on, who was your money on?
Connor. Sorry. Chris.
Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah.
There
Jeff
you go.
Powell.
Late stoppage or points.
Put your
Daily
money
Mail's
on
Jeff
that,
Powell.
bruv.
Everybody check out Jeff.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much. Frank Warren on the phone there to Jeff Powell. So that was Jeff Powell. Yeah, we are still none the wiser, but of course, as we mentioned earlier, exclusively here, breaking news.
We saw Eddie walk up the stairs.
Eddie's gone up the stairs. Conor Benn has left the building, not metaphorically, quite literally left the building.
I also want to ask you. You said something earlier on about
we have the PR team, so that's the Matchroom Boxing and the Zone PR team that have just jumped up the stairs very, very quickly.
The PR team, bruv. Some of you men need that, bruv.
This looks like it could be quite significant. We're here. We're live here from the press conference again. Remember, if you're watching, please hit that like button, comment,
hit the like and subscribe button, bruv.
Hit the like and subscribe button, bruv, and just let us know what you feel about it. Castillo, this is. I mean, my head is spinning as we know. We've been speaking about this. I think kind of having you around always brings a calmness to me usually.
Bruv, do you know what? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. This is the most maddest thing I've ever seen in boxing. Yeah, I never ever thought that I would get to this bit where you've got people running in, rushing about, trying to make sure a fight happens on Saturday, bruv. This is bizarre. As Rob said earlier, it's one of the biggest scandals in boxing history. So, bruv, we'll find out soon, bruv. It's a mad one.
We certainly will find out soon by hook or by crook. I mean, we are less than 1 hour away now from the press conference. From the press conference starting.
Maybe Ben just wanted to get some Nando's, bruv. You get me? That's what he went
Chris
to
Billum Smith. Chris Billum Smith. You're not the European champion anymore, but get in the middle there. We've got Chris Billum Smith, who's been allowed back into a Matchroom event despite his appalling lack of loyalty. Chris Billum Smith. I mean, in all seriousness, this is a very serious situation. We don't mean to make light of it. How good was that Indian last night?
Yeah, it was a good Indian. It was as
was your belly not was it moving mad this morning?
Mate. No, I was all right. I kept it. I didn't go too heavy, so no, it was good. It was I felt like it was a posh Indian.
Shout out to Chris for the recommendation, bruv. He saved me. I was about to order a prawn ting, but he saved my life, bruv.
Yeah, I was looking at fish and seafood, and I was like, and he was worried about his belly. I was like, you want to stay away from that, then, mate. That's and you did have the fish, and well. Yeah,
the first 2 hours of today was not looking good, bruv. But anyway, Chris, in all seriousness, we're less than an hour away from the undercard press conference to start. Of course, your stablemate, Ellie Scotney, is due to box for the European title on here. What do you think is going to happen here?
I don't think it's going to go ahead. And I'm devastated for Ellie because she's been flying in camp. She's not on millions of pounds. She hasn't had big paydays. She needs, this is her full-time job. She's a full-time athlete. She put the work in. And it's the undercard you feel sorry for in that situation. Ellie, it's a massive fight. It's her first major title. Meant to be fighting for a world title once she wins on Saturday. So it's a huge fight for her. It's a massive turning point in her career, and it's been taken out of her hands by, taken away from her. Where it just situations completely, nothing to do with her. She's just done everything by the book. So, yeah, for Ellie, I'm, I want I want her to go ahead. Do I think the main event should go ahead? No, but I want her to be able to fight somehow, some way. So I'll be gutted if she can't get that opportunity.
As a professional fighter and somebody who makes his living from boxing in the sport, if the fight were to go ahead, how would you feel about that?
The main event, I don't know, really. Like, I don't feel it's not right. It's not right. It shouldn't go ahead. Like, that's the be all and end all. The only reason it hasn't already been called off is because of the money it makes. If this was a small hall show in Bournemouth on
shout out to Bournemouth,
600 people, it would have been pulled already. But because of the money has been driven behind it, and I get it. It's a business. And also, if this was the other way around, if Chris Eubank Jr. had failed a drug test, there's no way this would be going on this long. It's only because there's a disadvantage to Conor with the weight situation going, the bigger man being the smaller man. But
if he was in a similar situation right now to Chris Eubank, where you found out the person you were facing was allegedly on performance enhancing drugs or anything like that, would you go through with the fight, or would you pull out?
As a fighter, yeah, you would. You almost want to drive you even more, because we're fighters. We're built that way, and we just want to put it into perspective in terms like, right, it's even a harder fight now, and it's going to be more of a sweeter win, and you want to put that person in their place.
Big man Singer. So what's next for you, Chris?
We're waiting on a deal. Hopefully we're back in Bournemouth in December. That's the plan, and you'll be there.
Big man saying I'm going to be there, bruv. He's a madman. You get me? Cyborg out here, bruv. Don't know.
Chris Middleton, thanks very much for joining us. We're just going to pull in. Where's Robbie Davis Jr.? He's on the phone over there. So we're going to be joined by somebody else at some point. But yeah, we're just going to move back in a little bit just to tighten things up.
We're not trying to get the ops in the background, bruv. We're not trying to get sued out here, bruv. You get me?
Yeah, we're going to try and keep it strictly ID boxing for the time being. Hopefully going to be joined by somebody else on the live soon.
Speaking of,
shout out the 1,500 people who are watching. Castillo, what message have you got to the 1,500 ID boxing fans watching and Castillo fans?
Make sure that you lot stream my new thing coming out in 2 weeks,
absolutely.
Bruv. RIP out on all digital platforms.
RIP out on all digital platforms.
You get me, bruv. So it's right now, it's really like literally in about an hour or two, we might have an answer for you lot to what's going to happen. But we don't know right now, bruv. Also, I just want to say, one of my ops, I just found out recently, yesterday, one of my ops is in court, bruv. Had his sentencing is in December, bruv. So big man thing, chat to you, bruv. You get me? Protect your body, bruv. Can I get serious for you in there? Don't know, my G. You get me? Stay safe, bruv. You get me? Stay dangerous. Don't know. Big man thing.
I'm sleep deprived, and he's quite funny at the best of times. Okay. Who are we looking to pull in here? We're looking at somebody. Jordan. So we are still here on the live stream. Let us know what you think in the comments about Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. Do you want the fight to go ahead? Should the fight go ahead? Will the fight go ahead? They're the questions that everybody's asking.
Also, some motivation for you guys, bruv. Outside, Conor's got 3 big whips, bruv. Yeah, right now they got some gal them coming in, bruv. Is this more motivation for you lot, bruv, when you see them walking past, bruv? You might see them, you might not, bruv. But just know that if you work hard and do hard work, dedication, bruv, one day you might be up in here, bruv, getting a gal them with 3 nice whips outside, bruv.
I think under the circumstances, maybe we should just wait before we go down that route. But anyway, we're at the minute, innocent until proven guilty. The fight at the minute,
allegedly,
I believe, is still on. Felix Cash, who is boxing on the undercard. Felix Cash, who is boxing on the undercard, of course, a stablemate of Conor Benn. Shane McGuigan is on his way, so I'm sure we can pull Shane McGuigan in at some point. Chris McKenna from the Daily Star. Shout out Chris McKenna from the Daily Star. I don't know whether or not he's watching.
There's a lot of big media people in here. That's how big this story is right now. That's how mad it is, honestly.
There's a lot of media, and this is a developing story. Nobody, I think it's fair to say, has any idea what's going on here. I mean, we're here on the live. We're just kind of vamping and waffling and trying to keep you guys as informed as we can. We've got Darren Barker on the way in, of course, former IBF World Middleweight Champion and somebody who's very close to Tony Sims and the Conor Benn camp. I'm going to try and pull him in if and when we can.
Get you the scoop and the exclusives, bruv. Only on ID Boxing. You see, them other channels ain't doing that. Right now, they're just here eating Greg's. You get me? They ain't doing the work like this,
Where's the
bruv.
Greg's? Like,
Big man team.
there's a Greg's apparently. that really piqued my interest. I'm not sure if Darren's going to be able to join here. Of course, he is working for Matchroom Boxing, and he is due to be waiting. There's a lot of people on phones here. Darren has gone away. I don't want to grab him and pull him back upstairs. There's a lot of people moving around upstairs, running from room to room. We are waiting for somebody.
We're going to bring you the tea soon, bruv. The tea is piping hot, bruv.
Yeah, I think we're going to be joined by Gareth A. Davis. I think he's on his way over now. Gareth's usually good for a word or two. We're going to bring him into the live chat.
Serious people. This brother, he's got money, bruv.
Joined by the one and only Gareth A. Davis. We're here on the live chat. Jordan's been out foraging and finding people. Gareth, where are we at with everything?
Well, on my way in today, I'd been hearing that the fight was still on, which I couldn't believe. Can't believe it was called off yesterday. It wasn't called off yesterday. And now, hearing rumours that it may be off. So, and that's the right decision, regardless of whether there's a loophole there, in my view, that they're looking at in the High Court, whether, it's restraint of trade because it wasn't UKAD who found Eubank-Benn positive, allegedly. So
that's a fact. That is a fact. You don't need to allege that. That is a fact. The UKAD, the VADA test did come back for clomiphene, so that is a fact. There is no need for the allegedly on there. I got you, Gareth. Don't worry.
Yeah, thank you. but the point being, just because UKAD didn't test him and found him positive, what's the point in having testing, and what's the point in signing up for voluntary testing if it isn't followed through? Nick Blackwell, Joel McClellan, Michael Watson, irreparably damaged. Thankfully, they're all alive and still beautiful human beings, but this family has a history of vicious fights, both families, and it just seems a travesty for boxing if the event does go ahead before there's a full investigation into what Conor has or has not had in his body, what mistake he might have made or not. You need a full inquiry first of all, and then the board can make their decision. They've said prohibited for the event. They haven't suspended him, and that was their way into having this High Court ruling today. For Matchroom and Wasserman, but it makes it makes no sense at all for the event to go ahead at this stage, in my view. I don't know if you agree with me.
If the fight does go on, do you think it sets a bad precedent for the sport?
Oh, it sets a precedent that we may find it very, very hard to recover from. The sport is under massive scrutiny right now. All the news outlets are here now rather than sports outlets. And if anything happened to either of them or anyone on this card, it will never be forgotten and be a huge stain on the sport of boxing. And, and also on the reputations of the promoters involved.
Absolutely agree with you. I think it was. I don't think anybody's necessarily covered themselves in glory over the last 48 hours, but I think the decision by Eddie Hearn to not go and seek the Luxembourg Board of Control, the Maltese Board of Control, Bieber, not Justin, that's at least something. That would have been, it would have essentially been an unregulated, unsanctioned fight. And as you've correctly stated there, the family history and also a lot of the build-up has been dominated, as you well know, Gareth, is well documented about the weight, the rehydration 100%. Clause. You throw adverse analytical finding into the mix there, and you've got something that is potentially very, very damaging to the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. You have to add the weight cut and the weight gain into all of this as well. You have to maybe listen to the words now of Christopher Eubank Sr. Maybe he knew about all of this and was extremely worried about his son. He's lost one son tragically already, and maybe that's why he hasn't made an appearance. It's made no sense. I've never experienced this apart from the one time when maybe it was last year or the year before where Dillian White and Oscar Rivas.
2018, but again, that was after the fight. It wasn't in the build-up with the eyes of the world on the fight. Certainly the eyes of the UK have been very much on this. As you well know, DAZN have needed a fight like this that can cross over into your BBCs, into your Good Morning Britain, and to have something like this happen on the Wednesday of fight week, it couldn't have gone any worse, really, in that regard.
Yeah, and also, I was teased up as well early in the morning on, when was it, Wednesday? Yes, yesterday morning. I was teased up early on that one of them had tested. I didn't put it out because I needed to find out who it was. And obviously the Daily Mail Riyadh El Samurai story broke. And if that story hadn't come out, where would we have been? Because obviously pressure was being applied from the promoters and well, maybe the board didn't know about it at that point. Maybe they did. I understand the test was on September the 1st. September the 9th is being reported as well. There's also talk, allegedly, of another failed test with WBC Cares earlier
Clean
on.
boxing program of the WBC.
Boxing program. So all of this needs a proper inquiry. If punishment is fitting, punishment needs to be there. Look, we all like Conor and we all like Chris. They're extraordinary young people and young athletes, but safety first in boxing. You live to fight another day. Remember that saying? You live to fight another day. A month ago, we were here on a Thursday, weirdly, about this time, when we started to hear the Queen was potentially passing away, and she did, of course, and the women's event was cancelled or postponed till next week. You do not have to go through with an event just because money surrounded it and they've made weight and all those kind of things. You can hold it back and wait for another day. You cannot allow boxers to go into the ring when they've tested positive for a substance that's banned, a PED.
Completely agree. I'm going to give the last word to the main event himself. And we've got two of the most suave dressed men in boxing here. Of course, I'm talking about myself and Gareth. Castillo, I'm going to leave the final word to you for Gareth A. Davis. It looks as though we might be off here.
So in your opinion, moving forward, this fight should not happen?
I think if there's an inquiry, not on Saturday. Not on Saturday. It needs a full inquiry. It needs time for all the details of it to be assessed, for a decision to be made, for the Boxing Board of Control to have their own hearing as well and decide whether they have the legal ramifications to either suspend or ban Conor Benn for a period of time if he's proven to have been a drugs cheat, and then we can move forward. And then it's all above board. But it may never happen now. But it should definitely not go ahead on Saturday, because if it does, it's a massive stain on the sport of boxing and the repercussions are enormous.
Gareth A. Davis, always a pleasure. Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much for joining ID Boxing, and we look forward to catching up with you soon. Thanks so much. So there we have it from Gareth A. Davis. Nice to see him looking so well
100%.
after presenting changing rooms for all of those years.
Big man thing, like you said, bruv. Wise words. You live to fight another day. Wise words given by Craig's dad on Friday.
We've got Chris McKenna here from the Daily Star. Again, we've got the esteemed journalists,
Proper people,
Castillo, as well as Chris McKenna from the Daily Star. Chris, what a last 24 hours or so we've had here.
Boxing, isn't it? It's been quite, I've never really gone through anything like this. Something like transfer deadline day for boxing, but it's obviously a very serious matter. A lot of issues going on, a lot of legal issues going on. We're hearing different things, but I think very soon we'll have an answer either way this afternoon before the press conference, and we'll find out if this fight's going to happen or not.
I think it's probably about an hour and a half now. One second. In the last hour and a half or so, I think I've changed my mind on things, and I kind of don't want to throw the sources thing out, but we've had people who are very well connected in the sport say one thing, and then other things come in soon after. What is your understanding of where we're at right now?
It's the same as it was kind of this morning. There's legal kind of discussions going on. It's with lawyers. They're looking at whether they should or can go ahead. Obviously, Eddie Hearn made it clear yesterday that he feels that it should, because Conor Benn is not suspended by the British Boxing Board of Control. He's not. He's facing currently no action. So from that point of view, yes. But there is obviously this issue. He's provided an adverse analytical finding. It's with another body, and it has to be looked at. It's being looked at, and the board are obviously not happy with the fight going ahead. But Eddie, there was a lot of talk overnight that he's going to bring in Luxembourg, he's going to bring in different bodies and all that. But Eddie has cleared that up now, and he said he's not. There was issues, a few sponsors kind of getting a bit nervy this morning. If it goes ahead with another body, we don't really want to be part of it. That's obviously been cleared up now, because this fight only goes ahead now with the board involved.
And absolutely the right decision.
Yeah, definitely. It's on British soil. The British board have to be involved. And it would have put the undercard fighters at risk if he did go down that path. And I'm not 100% sure how far Eddie did go down that path, if he even did. So all those undercard fighters would have been at risk, because they would have had to fight on a foreign license, and there would have been a lot of issues there and stuff that they've got to think about their futures as well. So I think it's the right decision to stick with the board. It should be their decision. They're the authority in the sport. What they should say should go, and whatever they say should go. And we'll find out if that's going to be the case in the next few hours.
Castillo, we were talking about earlier whether or not the fight would be rescheduled, whether or not we would see this fight at some point down the line. What do you think?
I think down the line it's looking shaky now. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But I do think it's a great fight. And if it does actually go through, who would your money have been on?
I would have had to pick Chris Eubank before any of this came out, even just because of the size factor. Just a big middleweight coming up against who Conor was started out as a light welter, and he grew into the welterweight division, but still don't think it was his natural weight. And he's coming up into a massive catch weight. But whether it happens in 3 weeks or not is another debate now, because Chris Eubanks, after making, or you would imagine, being very close to the weight, is he going to want to or be able to do that in 3 weeks? That's a big challenge, because everything is coming to peak, and at this point, 3 weeks mightn't be enough time. They might have to go further back, because I don't know how it's easy it's going to be for him to stay around that weight.
That's a very good point there that you've made. That's why we get all the real journalists here on ID Boxing News. Making the weight, and we saw Chris Eubank yesterday. I felt like he looked very dry, he looked very gaunt in the face. He kind of he alluded
He
to
looked
the
very
fact,
tired yesterday.
tongue in cheek, but many a true word said in jest, where he said, I'm starving, and a lot of fighters are very. I don't think he necessarily would have enjoyed making 160 after his little ventures up at 168 pounds. I know he wasn't a natural 168 pounder, far from it, but getting down to 157, and the next few weeks of kind of your body going and then having to pull it back in is going to be very, very difficult for him. One of the things that I did want to talk about was clomiphene and the lasting effects that it has in your system. It's not something that you can flush out over 2 days or 3 days. It depends, of course, how long it's been in his system to this point, but it's something that could be in your system for up to 4 months from the research that we did yesterday. What would you like to see happening from this point of view moving forward from a testing perspective?
I think that the UK anti-doping should get involved, because they're the authority in the UK. Whether VADA will share the detail with them, but I would like to see an investigation, because, as I pointed out in an article today, Conor Benn has the right to reply. He has a right to prove himself. We should have that right. He has the right to look
100%.
and give his answer and give his explanation. And I think the only way that can happen in Britain is if UK anti-doping get involved. So I think that the VADA, whether they should or whether they can, they should be sharing the information with UK anti-doping, so we can have a proper investigation, and that can lead to one way, and that's one way for Conor Benn to clear his name. If it is a misunderstanding, if it is whatever reason this has happened, he needs the proper kind of due process, and the only way I see that can happen in the UK is if UK anti-doping get involved in this.
One of the things that I would really like to see, and I know you'll be on the same page with me with this, is some more unity and unison with the various different testing agencies. You've got VADA, you've got the UKAD, you've got USADA in America, and it seems as though, we had a very, not very similar, but we had a situation with the Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas fight in 2018, in July of 2018, where you kind of able to slip through the cracks depending on which testing agency administers the test, where the findings are. How good would it be? Like making the best of a bad situation, and indeed, if this fight is off, as we are, it's growing likely. How good would it be if something good could come out of this, and we can kind of reform the way things are going with regards to testing in boxing?
We need it. We need an overarching sanctioning body. We don't have a FIFA. We don't have a FIBA. We need somebody who oversees everything. And that's the problem. There's too many governing bodies. You've got British boards. You've got different boards in Europe. You've got all the different states in the US. There's nobody overarching, oversees everything. And that's what we need. We were promised that VADA might bring this because they are independent, because they don't work with one particular governing body, but now we see what the problem is there, because they don't have any kind of power to investigate properly, to hand out any sanctions, or even to clear people. So we need an overarching body. Boxing needs a FIFA, but it's never going to get it. That's the unfortunate thing, because it's too far gone. And that's a problem with all sorts. That comes down to world titles, that comes down to fights not happening. If we had a worldwide sanctioning body that's not split into 4 like it is for the titles and stuff like that, it'd be so much easier.
Now, I think there's only one man for the job when it's coming to being an overarching man who can govern the sport. I am, of course, talking about the main event himself, Castillo. Castillo, what would you do to govern the sport of boxing? What changes would you make?
Do you know, it's a hard one, because on one hand, it's like, I like the controversy, I like the drama, I like the build-up, but at the same time, fighter safety always comes first, like before anything. Like, God forbid anything was to happen on Saturday, anybody was to get hurt, then it brings the whole sport of boxing into question, and that's something none of us want. You get me?
Well said. Chris, I'm going to leave the final word with you. It's been a hell of a last 5 hours.
Still more news to come.
Still more news to come. We don't have anything official. It is, as I said, looking increasingly likely that we don't have a fight here. Charlie Sims, of course, part of Conor Benn's management setup there. Hopefully we can get something from him sometime soon. But yeah, sum up this last 24 hours in one sentence for us if you can, Chris.
Boxing. Drama, just constant drama, and just not good for the sport. We don't want this. We want we want proper kind of everything should be clearer. There should be more transparency. We should know what's going on. But yeah, drama, and there may be still some more to come this afternoon.
Absolutely. Chris McKenna from the Daily
Big man
Star
saying.
there. If you're not familiar with Chris McKenna, shame on you,
Get
but
to
go
know,
and follow
bruv.
all of his work and going to him for
Daily
the
Star, bruv,
for
you
the
see?
big for the big
Official
big scoops.
things.
Andy Purawal from ID Boxing, put your tripod down, get your car off, make it look like to make it look like say, but we're going to have him for a couple of minutes because we need to get some interviews. Andy, hell of a last 24 hours in the sport.
It's been wild. You don't really know what to make of it because just haven't seen this before. Still kind of unsure what's going on. I'm hearing everybody saying that the fight's been off now. Heard it's on. So yeah, I'm just interested to see what's going to happen. I think Eddie's just left, so I don't know if he's left and he's coming back. So
At the minute you're hearing that it's on.
at the minute I'm hearing it's off. And there's a statement
man.
at 2:30.
Statement at 2:30.
Statement at 2:30.
Breaking
Again,
news.
breaking news here on
bruv.
ID Boxing. We're ID Boxing News and we're live here
Big
from the
man
Chris
thing.
Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn press conference in London. Andy, I'm going to give you a last final word because I appreciate you have to go. He's got to go out there and get them big exclusive. Everybody follow
Proper things,
Andy
bruv. Follow
Purawal.
Andy, bruv.
If you like your boxing, if you like your mixed grills, there's only one place for you. Andy, try and sum up this fight week if you can.
This has been nothing like anything I've experienced before. Out of any fight week I've covered, whether it's been over here or in America, nothing can kind of match it just because of how just you can't put it into words. I can't even think of what I'm trying to say. It's just been non-stop. But yeah, I've got to go get busy. But yeah, good luck with the rest of the stream, guys.
There he is. Go and get busy indeed. Andy Purawal for ID Boxing there.
Breaking news, bro. We're
Going
dropping
to
all of
get
that.
them big scoops. Going to earn that money come the
See,
end of the
breaking
month.
news only on ID Boxing, bruv.
God, I don't really know where else to go here. We've got so many people
Bruv.
emerging from around us. Castillo.
We've seen Eddie walk back and forth about 20 times. He's burning bare calories, bruv. His steps must be mad. You get me?
We now have another one of the most premier combat sports reporters in boxing. We have Wally Downs from The Sun. Wally, I actually mentioned this at the start about the fact that on the way to the press conference, I had one bit of information. When I saw you, again, a reputable journalist, I had another bit of information. It was wrong, but anyway, where are we now with the fight?
I think we'll get a statement quite soon. From what I understand, Eddie is under pressure to get the fight on. I think he's gone on record to say that Canelo Golovkin wasn't the success that they would hoped it would have been. This fight has got subscribers and pay-per-view buys potentially. I was quite surprised that Eddie has said they won't go down the foreign license route because yesterday he quite openly said, I don't want to, but that means I don't want to, but I could or I would. So something's obviously changed. And yeah, it looked to me like he was just trying to sort of overpower the board, perhaps with financial clout, as we've seen the board suffer in the past. So we'll find out shortly, I imagine.
Now, one of the things that I wanted to say, so I am getting news here. I'm getting breaking news that the fight is off. We have been waiting for things to come. We're hearing lots of things coming in and out, but I believe the fight is off. Just to confirm what Wally's just mentioned there. But one of the things around the governing bodies, of course, we've seen it. The highest profile example of it was David Haye versus Derek Chisora under the Luxembourg jurisdiction. Why do you feel that it's not gone that way here? Is it a timing thing? Is it a fear of a backlash? What do you think?
Listen, that fight went on a foreign license because the board didn't like the fact they had a fight. You know, they had a row in Germany. So incredibly different set of circumstances, really. You know, two boxers having a fight in a press conference is the sort of thing we not encourage, but we it'd sell tickets these days. So this is entirely hugely different. There was a lot of controversy around this fight because of the catch weight, because of Senior's comments, fears about his boy. If there's any suggestion that Conor's improved his performance with anything accidentally or on purpose, then putting him in a catch weight fight is incredibly dangerous.
Castillo, been a hell of a week here. You are kind of new to the whole coverage of
100%.
boxing in fight week. What a way to bust your cherry coming here for something like this.
I love the controversy, but it's a crazy controversy. Do you know what I mean? And the main thing as well for Conor, I feel for him because he's only 25. This is a lot of pressure to be going for. I see him just leave. What's your thoughts on how he must be feeling right now?
Listen, we had a similar situation with Dillian White. In a week, in a month, there could be a thorough investigation. There could be B samples tested. UCAD and VADA could somehow work together, and he could be completely exonerated and cleared. But this fight is gone. His reputation is tarnished, and reporters like myself who've written things and headlines that have gone on top of those words. If Conor has seen them, it's going to taint all of our relationships with him, and that's a shame. We've been covering him since he was 19. He'd have every right to feel grieved. But it's happened with other fighters. Hopefully, if he's cleared, if there's been a misunderstanding or a contamination, we can wipe our mouths and move on. But a lot of the evidence that we've got around at the moment isn't great.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point there, particularly with regards to, look, you have to take the information as it comes. The information as we have it now, it points where we're hearing that the fight is off. But when you have these things, it has to be reported on in a certain way. Obviously, he has his right to prove his innocence, to clear his name. One of the things that a good friend of yours and colleague Chris McKenna, we mentioned about a potential opportunity for boxing to reform its ways with regards to drugs, and to not have these potential nooks and crannies where you can kind of navigate through, depending on how many pay-per-views it's going to sell or how much the fighters are going to make or the broadcaster sets to lose if the fight doesn't happen. That's surely got to be one of the things that comes out from this.
But I imagine, Rob, without one global governing body like FIFA in football, how are you going to do it? UEFA have just had a completely different set of circumstances, but a minute silence at every UEFA game for the tragedy that happened recently. That's one organisation having total dominance. We don't have that. I can't ever see how you would have that, because if you set up a boxing FIFA, a rival one that would start a week later.
100%.
We've currently got 4 sanctioning bodies, throw another one in. If they all decided to agree on something, there'd be another one that opened up. So, it's the Wild West of sport for a reason, mate. And boxing is the home of chances, and just, where one gap closes, there's always another one to open up.
Certainly is. Final question from me to you, Wally. The right decision here, if indeed the fight is off as we're hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. These families, their incredible stories are tinged with tragedy, and any fight that might not be 100% fair shouldn't be going ahead. Hopefully it's all cleared up really soon and everyone's exonerated of any wrongdoing.
We'll leave
100%.
the final word to Castillo before we let Wally go. Wally's still here. Wally's gone. Wally's got to do his work. We'll leave Wally to that. We do have Don McRae, who is one of the biggest names in boxing journalism. Is kind of knocking around. He's talking to Chris McKenna, of course, who was on our stream earlier on today. We are still live here. We are still waiting on official confirmation. 2:33. So what we were told about
we're going to get an announcement at 2:30. They said.
Apparently so, but it's 2:33, so we don't have that yet. We are apparently going to still have an undercard press conference. The undercard is still to go ahead from 3:30 for 4 p.m. start for the undercard. We've got Lyndon Arthur, who's sat up there. It'd be great if we could potentially get Lyndon Arthur to jump on the live stream. We're just going to send Jordan Pollock, our producer, go and set him to work. Castillo, going to be great to catch up with Lyndon Arthur. But
shout out to Lyndon, baby.
Shout out to Lyndon. He certainly very much is always the most laid-back man in the place. I mean,
cool character, bro.
He looks like he's just woken up all the time. He's sort of swanning over in his slippers. There he goes. We're going to bring in Lyndon Arthur. World-ranked light heavyweight, who is, of course,
dripping down right now, bro. See that? Look at the drip, bro. Look at that. Come on.
Castillo, we've got Lyndon Arthur here, of course. He's still set to certainly have an undercard press conference, despite the fact that we are hearing that Conor Benn's fight with Chris Eubank Jr. is off. Castillo, I'll leave the first question to you. What have you got for Lyndon Arthur?
How are you feeling about all of this right now, man? This must be a lot of...
to me, I'm just fighting. It is what it is until it's not in it. And right now, it's not, but I'm focusing like it is.
Definitely focus. Yesterday, I saw that you were still doing the run, still doing everything.
Yeah, of course. And until the time I go home, it's not happening. I'm fighting. So that's just my mindset. I have to be like that because rough with the smooth.
So none of this, you're just on tunnel vision right now. No, you're not even thinking about any of this that's going on right now.
I am, because it's all over everywhere. It's all everyone's talking about on Twitter, and it's entertainment, isn't it? Fuck it. But for myself, I'm just focused to fight. I'm fighting on Saturday, and I'm going to do the press conference in a minute. So,
Now, for someone like yourself, who's a young man as well, looking at how Conor Benn must be.
I'm young.
Looking at how Conor Benn is right now, could you give us any idea of the pressure that he must be feeling right now?
Boy, you know what it is? It's not even. It's just people are gonna chat shit. Like he's give people an avenue now, whether he did it or whether it's an accident or whether it's just. People are going to chat shit. If let's say he wins, let's say the fight goes on and he wins, people are going to say, well, he's a drug cheat anyway. Let's say it doesn't happen, people are going to say you're a drug cheat anyway. Like the tires turn, like everyone was on Conor's side, now everyone's on Eubank's side, and it's boxing for you, but fans are brutal and Twitter's brutal and social media can be a strong thing. Right now, he's going to have a strong mind. I imagine it's not a nice place to be.
If you was in the shoes of Chris Eubank and then your opponent sort of had this over their head right now, how would you be going into it? Would you want the fight? Would you want them to pull out? How would you feel?
Yeah, obviously I'd ask for a little bit more money. I'd say take the rehydration clause away. I'd probably be a little bit of a prick if it was him but like make sure the fight goes on because everyone's there, everyone's in London, everyone wants the fight to happen. A lot of people don't, but I mean, like, in regards to the fighters and him, there's a big paycheck on the line. I'd want the fight. So yeah,
Because would the bragging rights also be if he was to win that fight?
yeah, it's like legacy. It's in it kind of thing. Still, even though this little dance happened, this is legacy, and I feel like if I was him, Eubank, I'd want the fight to go through.
100%, bruv. You see that? Lyndon Arthur, bruv.
Lyndon,
Giving
I
us the
just, want to
wise
speak,
words.
I just want to speak to you about what lies ahead for you. Of course, you are on the comeback after your fight with Anthony Yard, your rematch with Anthony Yard. What does the next 12 months look like for Lyndon Arthur, kind of aside from this weekend?
Promising. I signed a new promotion with Wasserman and stuff now, and they're behind me 100%. So when you have two people on the same path, on the same energy, same page, from the same book, it can only go well.
Castillo, we've spoken to Lyndon here around all sorts of boxing things. I'm sure you're keen to know what Lyndon Arthur's got planned after the fight on Saturday.
I was going to ask him, bro. What aftershave is that, bro? That is smelling amazing right now. Bro. Man walked through here, bro, smelling like baby oil, bro, and the beautiness, bro. It's a mad thing, man. Gotta go beauty base after this, bro. It's a mad thing.
You know what? I'll plug you after the thing.
Of course,
like
man. I'm telling you.
It's a secret smell.
Lyndon Arthur, thanks very much for joining us here at ID Boxing. I think hopefully whatever happens, you either get your fight in or you get back in the ring sometime soon. We look forward to seeing you sometime soon.
Come on, brother.
So that was
big man thing. I'm gonna go get that right after this, bro. When he came here, bro, smelling like money, bro. It smelled like that almond and papaya scrub, bro. You get from Beauty Base. It's mad.
We've got former lightweight champion of the world, and by the way, one of the biggest animals in the pubs after the fight. We've got Anthony Crolla here. Anthony, you've been around the sport for a long, long time. A long time. Ever seen anything like this?
No, I've not. I remember you can't compare it because of the magnitude event. I remember just before COVID started, like there was up in the air whether a show was going to get cancelled. Got cancelled at a few days' notice. But no, this is crazy. We've been here since what time? About 10 o'clock this morning, if not before. And we're still none the wiser. Really, you're hearing a lot of rumours. What's going on? It's on. It's off. It's on. It's off. But we'll see. Maybe don't know.
You're an ex-fighter. You boxed at the highest level as a professional. What do you think should happen?
I've got to be honest. Do you mean regarding the main event?
Yeah.
I can't see how it's right for it to go on. I don't know how anyone comes out looking well if this fight goes ahead. No, I've got to be honest. And as much as I want to see it, you want to see it, mate. You saw how much
100%.
attention this fight's had promotion-wise. But unless a reasonable explanation can be given in the next few hours, which, let's be honest, is very, very unlikely, it'd just be a massive black eye for boxing, wouldn't it? It'd be a massive black eye for boxing. That's the truth. So no, I don't think it should go ahead. I'd love the undercard to go ahead for the fighters, but it's not really that simple when probably 95% or more of the packed out O2 are bought tickets on the back of the main event.
In your career, if you were in, let's say, Chris Eubank Jr.'s position right now, what would be going through your mind?
And that's another thing where you've got to be honest, where what would be going through my mind is I want to fight because, with prize fighters and by all accounts, he's getting a very big prize that night. So people are going to forget it. He's not getting paid Saturday night. If that fight doesn't go ahead, he's not getting paid Saturday night. So, of course, he wants to fight. And he believes he still has enough. And all this talking about, the rehydration clause will get scrapped. But how wrong's that? That's like, so I'll tell you what. So that's almost saying, because he's failed the drug test, you can now have a bit of a...
Two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, there's no... It's morally just so wrong. But... And I get it. And and listen, I'm like, it shouldn't go ahead. And then I get it. I genuinely, not many people that say, I feel for Eddie Hearn because he's in a horrible position where, obviously, there's no denying. We've saw the promotion all week. We've seen the
huge build up towards it.
I mean, it's been massive.
100%.
As we know, it's been massive. So if it doesn't go ahead, there's a lot of people losing a lot of money. So, and people will say, and then the other thing is, if it does go ahead, it proves that boxing is just a business, isn't it? It's a business first and foremost. So, mate, yeah, we'll see.
Now, just looking at you two stood next to each other, I think the sizes is not too far apart. I'm going to put it out there to be an ID Boxing exclusive. Would you be willing to take on the main event Castillo and step in and save the show at the O2 Arena on Saturday?
Eddie, give us the money, bro.
The money's right. We've got
The
our
money's
price,
right,
yeah.
bruv. I'll get knocked out by this guy, bruv, in the first minute for the money, bruv.
Adi
Big
Oladipo
man
in the
thing.
building.
So we've got Adi Oladipo in the building, but it's not about you for the minute. You can get out of here for 2 minutes, and then we're going to grab you. You're going to join us. If you just hang around with Jordan, we're going to get you in there, Adi Oladipo. We're going to put the floor over to you,
I have to
Castillo.
ask you, if you was in Chris Eubank's shoes, would you go through with the fight, knowing all of this?
Listen, I'm deadly honest. Like from like morally, like I'd be thinking, no, and it's alright me saying that, but then when I know what's on the line, what the paycheck is, of course I'd be like, no, let's fight. I've got confidence in myself. So, and I think there's not many fighters might go, no, it's wrong for boxing. It is wrong for boxing, but when there's that kind of payday, like I say, you're gonna want to do it. But should it happen? No, it shouldn't.
So morally, you think definitely not.
Morally, absolutely not. But it's different when you've put yourself through what you have done. You've gauged yourself towards this. Do you know what? He's going to feel like. I think the only person who could look well from coming through on Saturday night would be Junior. I feel like he's almost in a no-lose situation as the fight carries on. Do you know what I mean?
That's what. Sorry, Castillo. That's one way of looking at it. But another way of looking at it is, of course, he's making 157 pounds, a weight that he's not been at since he was a teenager. It's a rehydration clause, and he's going in there against somebody who has been proven to be taken or an adverse analytical finding. I think like the technicalities around a failed drugs test. We're still waiting for the B sample to be tested, but all of the warning signs are there that if the worst were to happen, and of course we all know the dangers associated with the sport, that would just be damaging for the sport.
It'd never be forgiven, and then, like I said before, it'd be hard for it to recover, you know, for a long time. That, and I know people, a lot money talks, and there'll always be another big fight. Listen, if Tyson Fury and Joshua got made, if this fight went ahead Saturday, sadly, not many people will be speaking about it. But it's just so wrong. It's so wrong, and it's just like there's people all over the country, especially around London, who will lose a small fortune, you know, for if this fight don't go ahead. But morally, we can't stand there and say this should be going ahead.
Okay, well, that was Anthony Crolla, former lightweight champion of the world. We're going to let him go back and start and continue serving those really expensive steaks. Give us a Salt Bay before you go. There he goes. Salt Bay, Anthony Crolla leaving. We're hearing Chris Eubank Jr. is on his way here to the live press conference. Going to be interesting to see Chris Eubank Jr. Maybe we can see what he's got to say.
Bruv, I might need to get him a sandwich right now, man. He must be feeling it right now. I'm telling you.
Yeah, he's also not had sex in 2 weeks, so he says. So maybe you can help him out there as well. Not with the sex side of things.
You're moving mad right now, bruv. Shout out the LGBT community, bruv. Big man thing. You already know, bruv.
So we are waiting for Chris Eubank Jr., his imminent arrival. We've got Adi Oladipo.
Let's get up in here, bruv.
Is that you on your shirt as well?
Tupac, bruv. Come on. Machiavelli, bruv. Great of all time, bruv. Shout out to Tupac, bruv. Don't know.
Ade, this must have been some week for you, of course, employed by DAZN, a massive marquee event for DAZN. I think it's fair to say that this was an event that was going to cross over. It did cross over. We had Good Morning Britain. There was a scheduled BBC documentary. Looks as though this fight's off. How damaging is this?
Oh, massively. For everyone, right? For everyone involved, for all of us here, all the press that are here, all the people that have been waiting for this. This is the biggest fight of two British guys going at it in years.
100%.
You know, the anticipation, the crossover appeal, everyone is super disappointed. And even me, like for me, this would have been probably my biggest event in terms of the role I was going to play on the event.
Historic event.
Yeah, historic event. I mean, you saw the numbers on the face-off, 1.2 million on the face-off. Everyone's like, what, Ade's involved? Like, for me, it was excited. I've been prepping, I've been getting ready for it. And then for this to happen, bombshell. Honestly, bombshell. But this is the sport we love.
The biggest controversies in boxing.
One of them. It's one of them. Just because, again, like this fight for me was never going to happen. We're never going to see Eubank-Benn. And all of a sudden, when it got announced, I was like, what? And then you start to sell it. You're like, okay, Eubank might be too big, but oh, you know what? Ben's looking really good. So then it grows in your mind. It becomes bigger than anything. So for this to happen, it's one of the biggest stories in boxing. It has to be. It has to be. And look, it's a story that it's going to grow legs. This isn't it, isn't it? I mean, it's not going to stop now, is it? People are going to continually make videos about it like we're doing now. We're going to talk about it. And somehow, some way, we need to get to the bottom of what happened.
We certainly do need to get the bottom of what happened. And it's worth saying that Conor Benn does have a right to clear his name. I think that's one of the things 100%. That needs to come out from this. Look, we all know Conor. We've covered Conor for many, many years. If indeed this is a mistake, how it got into his system, whether it was contamination, whatever happened there, he has the right to clear his name. But with that kind of unresolved, it's absolutely the right decision, surely, for this fight not to go ahead.
Yeah, look, if they are going to say that's the best decision, because I think everyone was left in real tough positions. Even me, sort of as one of the people working on the broadcast, it's a tough decision. You're like, well, one second, it's your integrity that's at play here. You know, you don't want to be in an event where there are some big question marks.
It's more than just the fighters.
It's more than just the fighters as well that feel it. It's everyone around the event that feels it. So if it is off, although financially it's a big blow, you make that money back. You make the Zone will put on bigger events. I mean, Matchroom will put on big events. You make it, you move on, and you look at the schedule for the next 4 or 5 months, and we'll see what happens with Conor Benn and Chris Eubank and how it plays out. But massive. I can't tell you, honestly, of the last 5 years, this has probably been up there as one of the most fights I've been looking forward to. It's one like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Born rivals, exactly like it said.
Yeah, you're thinking, I mean, will the dads get involved? I was hearing about, Chris Eubank walking to Simply the Best, and that throws me back. I'm an old man. It throws me back to the 90s. So for all that to not happen, big blow, big blow.
You mentioned earlier on there that you didn't expect this fight to ever happen. Then it got announced, and we've had all of the build-up. It's done very well. All of this controversy, do you think we see this again? Will it be rescheduled? Will we get it back on?
I'm not sure now. I mean, if you're Chris Eubank Jr., you're not going to accept 157 again, are you?
Never.
You're not accepting that. You're saying, well, 1 second, if we want to do it again, do it 160. Will Conor Benn's team accept 160? Do they have to? Do they say, okay, let's move on, let's focus on 147 for Conor? I don't know. They're going to look at the numbers. We don't know the numbers behind the scenes. They're going to look at the numbers that this fight would have generated, and they're going to say, let's do it again. Sometimes, what do they say? I mean, bad publicity is good publicity.
100%.
That's what they say sometimes, right?
This controversy, I honestly feel, it's built up the hype even more.
Yeah.
Even more, because if you didn't hear about it, you definitely know now.
Yeah, so I think it will happen again, and I think it might happen again next. I mean, look, if they are saying the fight's off, is it off or postponed? And I guess those are the things that we'll probably find out in the next sort of hour or so. If it's postponed, then they probably will have a date in mind to when they go again.
I think a lot of that does depend on what happens here with Conor Benn with regards to the B sample, with regards to his VADA test, whatever comes out from that. Is he cleared? Does he get banned from the sport? How long will it take for clomiphene, which is something that doesn't, we've already addressed this earlier on the ID Boxing. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, turn your notifications on. Always, I learned that from Ade, actually. But anyway, everybody, the Green Chair, Boxing Talk with Ade. Everybody go check out Boxing Talk with Ade. If you know about the Green Chair, you really know about boxing. But anyway, what happens with Conor Benn next? The clomiphene is not something that just leaves the system in 2 weeks. This could be something that he needs to flush out for a month or two, and then you start talking around, we already see December being a date where the Tyson Fury due to go December the 3rd. There's rumours around Anthony Joshua December the 17th. If we start looking into 2023, it just gets further and further and further away.
Maybe it needs to. Maybe this isn't a case of let's rush it back. It is a case of let's sort out the issue here. There's a big grey cloud over this right now, and they need to sort this out. You mentioned clomiphene. No one even knew what that was. Honestly, I thought I knew a lot of what's on the sort of banned substance list. I've never heard of it in my life, and everyone all of a sudden start Googling this stuff. We also need to find out the issues with UCAD and VADA. Yeah. I mean, are UCAD testing for clomiphene? Obviously, it doesn't seem like they are if Conor Benn is tested negative for that. So much needs to happen before we even think about Conor Benn getting in the ring again.
And sorry to cut you, but should this fight go on, do you think does it set a bad precedent if it happens?
Yeah, 100% it does. It 100% does. And that's why, look, I've turned up today, and I hope that the decision that it's off. Because I think for boxing, it's a dangerous sport. Like, me and Rob have covered the sport for years, and people have died in the ring. I mean, we love the sport, but we also understand the dangers of it. So something like this happens, everyone needs to be singing from the same hymn sheet, and that hymn sheet has to say, fight off. It just has to. And I hope that that's what we're here today to hear. Which is, look, I understand the disappointment for fans that have spent thousands on travel. Forget the tickets. You'll get refunded on that. It's the travel you probably won't. Hotels, time off work, etc. I understand their frustration, but fighters' safety and fighters' health comes first. And we need to clear up a few things as well.
Matt Lawton is now reporting that the fight is off, according to him. He's one of the most respected. Of course, we did break that about half an hour ago here on ID Boxing. You see it across the bottom of the screen that the fight is off. Matt Lawton is now reporting that lawyers in the High Court were unable to secure that injunction and the fight is off. We are, of course, still waiting for official announcement from Matchroom Boxing, from the fighters themselves, of course, from DAZN, but it looks as though it's off, Ade.
I'm disappointed for, by the way. Forget Conor Benn and Chris Eubank for a second. The undercard fighters.
100%.
Undercard fighters who are not going to get paid. And they pay for their camps as well. Let's hope they can be compensated somehow. I'm not quite sure they will be.
Shout out to Lyndon Arthur.
Lyndon Arthur. Shannon Courtney's here. Galal Yafai, one of the best young prospects in the world. They don't fight. And a lot of these boxers don't have the sponsors of an AJ or someone. If they don't fight, they don't get paid. And they're not now. I hope that they get somehow compensated or put on other cards around the world, because no one talks about the undercard fighters here. And I'm talking ones that are living mouth to mouth. You know what I mean?
Of
Check,
course.
check to check.
Of course.
People that would have been probably getting paid only a couple of grand to appear right low on the undercard. They don't get paid, and no one talks about them enough. So hopefully they get compensated for it.
There's a misconception, as always, in boxing in general. Certain people from the outside looking in and say, oh, you box on these cards, you must have this, you must have that. It's quite common, as you will very well know, that fighters who box for British titles still have full-time jobs. So Maxie Hughes, who is, on the cusp of a world title shot, he's somebody who, until very, very recently, had a full-time job. This is, this is something that is going to massively affect these guys on here. Whether or not the undercard still goes ahead, do you have any idea what the contingency plan with our main event is?
It's going to be a weird one, isn't it? I mean, I was up in Nottingham recently for the Leewood Lara event. That didn't go ahead, and I mean, people wanted their tickets back. People wanted their monies back, and still some people stayed. But I mean, if you've bought a ticket for, and no disrespect to the guys on the undercard, you haven't bought a ticket for them. You've bought your ticket to see Conor Benn, Chris Eubank.
Cost of living crisis.
There you go. So if the undercard does go ahead, everyone's going to want to give their tickets back. No one's going to want to be there, and it's such a big venue. It's the kind of venue that, look, you don't want 2,000 in there. Just there's no point having 2,000 in there. Do you know what I mean? So unless it can still somehow get 12,000 in there, which I don't think it can, there's no point. You might as well scrap the whole event.
I'm going to leave the last word to you, Castillo, before we let Ade go.
By the way, I love this man,
Big man.
By the way, the way I watch these guys' videos, there is no one better out here. No one. I don't know if I can even talk about his videos on it, because some of them...
Of course you can. Castillo's part of the family.
Incredible. That one video where the guy's letting other people dance with his girl.
Big man thing. It's not looking good, bro.
It's not looking great, bro.
So before you go, actually, can you give them that? Just give them it. It's not looking good, bro.
It's not looking good, bruv.
Big man
It's
thing.
not looking good.
Ade Oladipo from The Zone. As always, everybody remember to go and check out Boxing Talk with Ade. Get on that green chair. We're going to be joined by another esteemed journalist here. Only the highest and the biggest names here on ID Boxing. We're joined by Ron Lewis. Ron, going to go straight into it. You've been around sports in general for many, many years, and boxing, we won't say how many years, but have you ever seen something like this?
Yeah, you've seen things like this. You've seen, I mean, as I say, people compare it to the H. Aura situation, which was unprecedented at the time, but I think this will be probably sorted in the next hour.
What do you think happens? I mean, Matt Lawton is reporting that that the High Court weren't able to secure the injunction. We're hearing that the fight's off.
The fight will be off. The fight's always going to have been off. I think they've chanced their arm. I think all the stuff about going to an overseas commission was all sort of nonsense. That can't be done in that sort of time. And you're talking about burning a lot of bridges there. Everyone then involved in the show essentially is putting their license at risk. The one at the one at West Ham with when Frank did it, basically the board covered a lot of loopholes after that, and it was done over a long time. It wasn't done in 2 days. I mean, the idea that some little federation somewhere has enough officials sitting around to be able to come along and do an O2 show on Saturday night is kind of fanciful. They might try and postpone it, I suppose, and then see what happens with a hearing, because obviously, no one's guilty until they've actually had a hearing, and that will happen at some point, and I presume the test results will go to UCAD, and UCAD will investigate, and we'll have a hearing at some point, and then we'll find out what the result of that is, and what suspension or what fines or whatever comes after that. But I don't think it can go forward on Saturday. It leaves a real bad taste that they sort of try to, and it's terrible for you feel for Eubank, you certainly feel for all the guys on the undercard, because the last time I was in this building was 2 days before Shields and Marshall, and I remember when the news came through about the Queen was health concerns, I turned to the person next to me and said, who was down from Manchester from then Thursday till Saturday. I said, well, what are you going to do with your weekend then? Because, and again, there was a feeling that it must be serious, and then chances are the show might not go ahead. And it hasn't been confirmed yet, and we have to wait for that. And you understand them trying to explore what they can to keep things alive and keep things going. But you got to be realistic. There's a much, much bigger picture. And that's the future of boxing. That's what you got to look at, the future of boxing. And, and it is a sport, and it's a sport we all care about. And we should be supporting the board, and then we should be going through the right processes of a hearing and an investigation and see what happens from that.
Well said, as always. I think we need to move away from the Canary River side. What do you reckon, Ron?
Yeah, I do actually, but actually now the Elizabeth line's going to be open from here to West London. It's actually going to be about 45 minutes quicker getting here for me. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
We'll look at that moving forward. Castillo, what are you going to be doing with your weekend now?
So you're 100% sure that the
no,
fight
I'm not 100% sure. I've been. Well, people have said to me. People say things, don't they? I don't reckon it'll go ahead. That's what I reckon. I can't see a why it could, for the good of boxing, go ahead. Whether the show still goes ahead in a sort of like Saturday night normal DAZN card, undercard, and they try to get it off, like maybe they'll do that. But I think, it's an absolute can of worms, isn't it? And I think the sport is kind of standing on the edge of a cliff here, and I think we've got to take a step back.
The right decision, because like we've seen in the past that, we had it earlier on in this year with Oscar Valdez and Robson Conceição. Of course, not over here, but the positive VADA test for fentanyl, that fight went on. We've seen it in the past with Dillian White and Oscar Rivas with the UCAD scenario. That fight went on. We didn't find out until after the fight. But this is, I hate to kind of big it up because it's the thing that should happen, but it's a good move for the sport to not proceed with this just for financial gain.
Yeah, it's a terrible precedent. It's a terrible precedent to go ahead with it. And if you start saying precedents that, let's just catch your breath, yeah, it's bad and people will lose money and stuff like that. And you understand it's tough on people and it's tough on the promoters. Let's not get away from that. They've invested a lot of money in putting this on. They're going to lose money. But, there's a bigger picture and we've got to accept the bigger picture.
Do apologise for being on my phone there, Ron. As we mentioned earlier on at the start, it's a very developing story. We have to try and keep up the news as it come in. Nothing's happened. Don't worry, we would have let you know. Castillo, final word for you.
So in your opinion, the fight should definitely go on just because of the precedent that it sets for boxing?
Off.
I think the fight should be off because it sets a terrible precedent.
Do you think we see it again, Ron? Do you think they reschedule it?
Could do. I mean, you can't prejudge the hearing. Essentially, it is very true that he hasn't been convicted of anything yet. Now, and everyone deserves their hearing. They deserve their day in court. They deserve to explain themselves, and you can't prejudge that. And they'll be in front of experts. It won't be in front of people on Twitter. It'll be in front of presumably UK anti-doping, and they're experts in these things. And then maybe we'll go back to it. But I think you can't just rush these things through.
Absolutely right. Ron Lewis, thank you so much for joining us here, particularly all of the journalists by Boxing Scene. Shout out Boxing Scene. Ron Lewis, Gun for Hire, one of the very best guns for hire in not just boxing but athletics. If you like your athletics, follow Ron Lewis on Twitter at Ron Lewis. Always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us, Ron.
No worries. Take care.
Changing the battery, so we're going back. We had about 6,500
I just saw somebody telling me that your live stream is really good quality. Just letting you know. So.
Thank you very much, Kate. Always a pleasure. Mics are still on. Okay, thank you very much. So you can still hear us. That's really, really good. We're going to get back on here. I can't see the comments here, so I'm just going to vamp. Castillo speaking to David Diamante. So they can still hear us. Unfortunately, they can't see us. We're just working on the. They can see. Can you see us now? We're back up. Hello, we're back, and we're joined by David Diamante. Diamante, how are you, David?
Great, Rob. Nice to see you.
Always a pleasure to see you. This has been some 24 hours in the sport, even for somebody as yourself who's been around the sport in kind of as close as one can be, quite literally at times in the ring with fighters. But I don't remember anything like this in the sport.
Is this a question?
It's me kind of rambling, David. What do you make of what we've seen in the last 24 hours?
Well, I mean, listen, this was a fight that a lot of people are looking forward to. We're looking forward to. I don't know what's going to happen. We're all waiting to find out, and that's it. Just waiting on that. I was looking forward to a great fight, and that's it.
What do you feel is sort of the best way to proceed? What is in the best interest of the sport? We of course see the British Boxing Board of Control circular that they said that they didn't believe it was in the best interest of the sport. Do you think that's the right call?
I'm an announcer, so I'm just going to stay in my lane. If they deem it like that, that's it. That's not my job. So I'm not a judge. I'm not jury. Um, I'm a ring announcer. So I just hope it works out for the best for everybody.
Disappointing though, nonetheless, if indeed the fight is off. I know that you would have been looking forward to the fight. We most certainly were looking forward to the fight. If it doesn't go ahead, we are still waiting, of course, for official confirmation from Matchroom Boxing and DAZN. It would be very, very disappointing.
If it gets... I mean, look, it's a disappointing situation, but we'll see what they decide to do, and I'm sure it'll be for the best.
Castillo, thoughts?
I got a star moment right now. This man's a legend. Real talk. Every time my wifey sees him, she talks about the locks. Loves him. Big man for you lot.
How are we getting on with the microphone situation? Sorry, we are happy. He needs a mic. Okay, go Castillo. Go give the mic to the tech man. So, David, what's next for you after this week?
Well, I am going to be in Mexico City for the Lara fight, so I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, we've got Katie Taylor at Wembley, Josh Warrington coming up, Montana Love in Cleveland. So the schedule is packed till the end of the year. So big fights to come, nonetheless. We're cracking on. That's just what it is.
You really do get around. You must love the jet set lifestyle, David. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to keep it up. It's a very exhausting lifestyle.
No, that's a great point. I mean, you got to love it. You got to love it to do it. If you didn't love it, you can't do it. It's not for everybody, that's for sure. But listen, friends all over the world, get to see you guys, and it's wonderful, Now,
one of the fights that you didn't mention there that I know that you will be very much looking forward to is Chocolatito Estrada 3, the trilogy. I know that you'll be looking forward to that. The second fight was arguably, if not better than as good as the first fight, but better than if not as good, better than the first fight. How much are you looking forward to seeing that trilogy?
Listen, man, these guys are incredible. You got the flies, the super flies. We got Bam Rodriguez in there also. So these guys are all great. And Chocolatito and Estrada, they always put it on the line. And I mean, we know we're going to get the best out of both of them. So I can't wait to be back in Phoenix, see my friends there, and watch a great fight.
I said to you, Castillo, actually, he was one of the fighters that I recommended to you, Chocolatito. What did you think to him?
Amazing fighter. Amazing fight. One of the best that I've seen. In fact, I wish he was promoted more. That's how good he is.
Chocolatito.
100%. The way he's able to get into the corners quick without getting touched. Amazing fighter.
David, I'm going to leave the last word to you here. We're kind of getting down to the crunch time, and I know you've got to go and do your job with the undercard. Just a message to fans of what you've got coming up on DAZN. I'm sure you're very, very excited, as you just mentioned there, to close out 2022 in a strong way. What are we going to see on DAZN Boxing before the end of the year?
Nah, man, listen, we're going to crack on regardless. So looking forward to a great end of the year, a lot of great fights, and I appreciate what you guys do. ID Boxing, you guys have been great. So thank you. Keep the content coming for the fans, and for all the fans that follow, thank you, and we'll see you out there on the road.
Before we let you go, we want a big man ting into the microscope, into the camera. Into the microphone.
A big man ting.
That's it.
Big man ting.
Come on.
There we go. David, thanks very much for joining us here live on ID Boxing as we await official confirmation. Thank you very much. Official confirmation about Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr.
That's a handsome man, bruv. He'll take your gal. Real talk. You saw the swag, bruv. You saw it. You felt it, bruv. Come on.
We are still waiting, of course, for official confirmation. Do apologise for any of the tech issues that we had before that. It's my fault.
Bruv.
Yeah, but we're back up and running. We've still got a little bit of time before we're getting the undercard up and running. I've got Darren Barker just over there. I'm going to try and grab it. I think Darren probably wants to stay.
Big man.
Well, you don't have to if you don't want to. So just let him know that he doesn't. I think he's got a lot of work to do. Obviously, he's going to be working on Before the Bell with Chris Lloyd. Shout out Chris Lloyd every time. Right, Castillo, if we don't have a fight this weekend, what are we going to do?
Bruv, I need to get first thing I need to do is get a juice, bruv. You get me? That's what I need to apple juice. That's what my weekend, bruv. I'm just feeling an apple juice. Get me a nice little restaurant. Shout out to Tito's, bruv. I might be going there. Get a nice little prawn salad thing, bruv. That's what I'm feeling for my weekend now that this fight might be off.
We've got a heavyweight addition
Big
to the
man thing.
ID
Come on.
boxing show
Come
here.
on, G. Come
We've
on,
got
man.
Matty
Yeah.
Harris, unbeaten heavyweight prospect from Wasserman. What's going on with? Are we having any more tech issues?
The mic.
Are we having any more tech issues? Okay, that's fine. We've got one mic for the minute. We're all good. Just speak to the guys in the WhatsApp group. Just see what's going on. Listen to Ryan. So, Matty, we sat down here yesterday and we were talking about what could potentially happen. It looks as though, I mean, we don't have an official announcement yet, but it looks as though the main event may not be taking place on Saturday night.
Oh, really?
Is that breaking news to you? We thought Matty Harris was over there watching the live stream, but he obviously wasn't.
Nah, I haven't really heard too much about it. So I'm not long come down here, so I'm
it going through
really
now then?
hoping it does.
Alright,
Obviously, at my own personal interest, but obviously in the case of you know, setting a precedent, especially. To be honest, I try my best not to get involved. As far as I'm concerned, it's none of my business. I'm just interested in my fight. And as I said, for my personal interest, I'm hoping it goes ahead because, as I said, otherwise I'm going to end up losing money on this fight week.
I don't know whether or not it means the rest of the undercard is going to be, it will still go ahead. There is, of course, the undercard press conference that is going to take place. We are awaiting official confirmation with regards to the main event, but you just touched upon it there, and I saw you last night, always looking really relaxed here, Matty Harris. But what's it like for you? Do you just kind of take each day as it comes? I mean, of course, you want to fight at the weekend, but what does it do for your kind of preparation mentally?
Do you know what? As I said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm still fighting. I'm relaxed with all this stuff anyway, so I never really get too involved in any of the hype or anything like that. I'm just focused on my fight. As I said, the same reason I'll come down here and relax at night, but I don't really pay too much attention to any of the news or gossip on what's going on. I'm just focused on what I have to do. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm still fighting. Until told, definitely not. I'm still fighting on Saturday. But this is what I've been getting ready for the past however many weeks. So, as I said, I'm prepared, I'm ready, and I'm just praying it goes ahead.
Now, you are, of course, a heavyweight, so Castillo, I'm going to put it over to you, the main event. Heavyweight chat with Fury and Joshua. What questions have you got for Matty Harris?
For your prediction for that one, should it happen? Who were you going for, Joshua or Tyson Fury?
Oh, I hate being asked this question, you know.
Man, you got to do it, man.
The hard-hitting questions from Castillo on ID Boxing.
I don't know. I'm going to go purely on the fact that I've actually shared a ring with Joshua. I would go Joshua. Just because, as I said, I've seen how it trains, and as I said, watching them on TV is very different to actually being in the ring with them. You actually see little things that they do, and you appreciate. Obviously, you appreciate when someone's punching you. Number one, how hard they can hit, and number two, the kind of skill set and engine that they have. One thing that obviously gets underrated and was criticised was his fitness levels, but maybe it's different on fight night. I don't know, because obviously with the lights and it affects everyone else differently. But he's actually got a very good engine, and which is something that I didn't really anticipate when sparring him. He can hold a pace, and he keep a pace up, and he can keep it for the rounds. Do you know what I mean?
So being a heavyweight yourself, though, I've got to cut you for this one. Being a heavyweight yourself, who are your influences?
My influences? Yeah. We're talking what? Obviously, AJ and Fury have been, that's the start of my career, so obviously, but I've been watching Lennox Lewis, Razor Ruddock, Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, them lot, and I watched a lot of the American smaller fighters as well, because it's not good just watching big fighters, because then you start to, I don't want to be that big guy that moves like a big man. Do you know what I mean? I want to be able to move like the smaller weights, like your Shakur Stevensons, your Devin Haney's, your Devontae Davis, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford. I really appreciate the way they box and their style of fighting.
So we're just having a little bit of issues with the mic, apparently, so he's going to go and give that over there. So, Matty, I'm going to jump in there. So, sparring with Anthony Joshua, how hard does he punch? A lot of people talk about Deontay Wilder's power, Tyson Fury in recent years. He's become sort of more of a puncher. AJ, I think he's become a forgotten puncher of the division.
Do you know what it is? What you realise in boxing, is that there's different types of power. There's that, say, Joe Joyce kind of power where he's a big, strong man and he's just going to bludgeon you to death and eventually knock you out. It's not the explosive kind of power. It's that consistent kind of heavy shots. Do you know what I mean? Joshua's got a bit of that. He is explosive, but he's got a very consistent, like every shot is as hard as the last one. Do you know what I mean? Which especially in the heavyweight division is hard, because to keep a tempo like that while pushing out the same kind of power output, that's draining. So that shows how very fit and able he is.
You mentioned there Joe Joyce. Now Castillo is president of the Joe Joyce fan club.
Big Joe Joyce fan. What are your thoughts on the fight with Parker?
Do you know what? I did say, I said, I've been a fan of Joseph Parker as well for a long time. But I said, you had Diamante on here earlier, didn't you? Yeah. You can ask him. I said, on that night, Joyce is going to stop Parker. And he was like, nah, man, he's a warrior, blah, blah. Listen, says, when you're hitting a man with a kitchen sink and he's walking you down, he stood in front of you and just firing away, bap, 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 bap. It doesn't matter how much of a warrior you are, that's going to get to you. Do you know what I mean? If you're hitting the guy with your hardest shots and he's not budging, yeah, he keeps coming forward, keeps peppering you with shots, then that's going to affect you. So I said I had Joyce for that, and plus the size difference. So what, a 2 stone size difference? Joyce is a big man, and especially against Parker, who's significantly smaller. What's he coming at, 17 and a half? Something like that. Yeah. Who's quite significantly smaller. I fancy Joyce to win that every day of the week. And combined with that, the type of fighter that he is and the kind of fighter that Parker is. Parker's a great counterpuncher. He's not so good at taking the initiative and going on the front foot. But Joyce is that kind of guy. You don't want to be in there counterpunching with Joyce. You don't want to give him the lead because he's just going to wear you down and break you. Do you know what I mean? So I did fancy Joyce for that fight. I'm not gonna lie.
That's a prediction right there that he got right, bruv. I should come to you for the next one, bruv. I'm telling you.
Castillo knows who to put his universal credit on next
Big
time.
man thing. You already know, bruv.
Okay, Matty Harris, thanks very much for stopping by. I think we are expecting the arrival of Chris Eubank Jr. shortly. Of course you can shout. Of course you can.
Yeah. Instagram, real Matty Harris. To be fair, it's the same across all social media. Twitter, Instagram. I think that's about all the social media I got. But yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bro.
Give us a big man thing before you go.
Big man thing.
There we go. Thanks very much. Apologies. I did.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, a few technical difficulties. I am very much distracted. It is a very developing situation here. I am getting messages from all kinds of people, so I apologise for getting my phone out. Castillo, we're still here. We still don't have the official announcement, but it looks
getting all this good content.
It looks as though we're going to be having Chris Eubank Jr. arriving shortly. So just say that again. So Riyadh and talk. So Riyadh, of course, from the Daily Mail, who broke the original story, is saying that now that the fight is off, we are still awaiting official confirmation. Matt Lawton, again another esteemed journalist, also said that the fight was off. We've got Alex Steedman over there. Maybe grab Alex Steedman. Does some great work for Boxing News and across all other publications. Maybe Jordan, you could grab Alex Steedman for us. So yeah, we are still addressing a very much developing story over here. I'm wondering whether or not we can get Sean Carter as well, one of the best videographers going. Big up Sean Carter every
Sean,
time.
Bro.
Film the main event.
Film the main event thing, bruv. You get
Plug
me?
the main event.
Go on YouTube, bruv. Go on YouTube right now. Main event, Castillo and Hearn, bruv. Big boy views. You get me? Come on, bruv.
I think we're about to be joined by the one and only Alex Steedman, who's going to jump in here. Alex, I appreciate your time at a very, very, very hectic day, even for boxing standards. This has been some 24 hours for the sport.
Yeah, uncomfortable, actually. And I think uncomfortable for the sport, but uncomfortable for us as individuals. I was excited, genuinely excited about this week. I think I was getting into this perhaps more than any other fight I've got into in quite some time, even although we had reservations about some of the parameters of the fight. But I was getting into it, and I think people were buying into it. And yesterday, was just deflating. I think it's been really difficult to attack the rest of the week, and we away, and the way it's gone on, the fact it sounds like there are motivations to try and get this fight to go ahead, even although probably what you lads are hearing and now and people back home are probably feeding into is the sense that the fight might now be off. But that's not seemed like the direction it's been heading in for the last 24 hours, to me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely right. And before we ask for any more of your insight, I think it's only right to plug the fantastic podcast that you did with Matt Christie of Boxing News. Shout out to Matt Christie and Boxing News every time. If you want that unbiased breakdown of what's going on in the sports, make sure you check out Alex Steedman and Matt Christie. But now that's out of the way, a nice plug for you there. Alex, yeah, I mean, we've kind of spoken about this with many of your colleagues. We had Ron Lewis over, we had Chris McKenna, Wally Downs. The right decision for the sport, this. If indeed it is off.
If it's off, it is the right decision for the sport. How does this look to everybody else outside the boxing bubble if someone who has tested positive, there are no doubts about that, someone who has tested positive, now That needs further investigation, whether they call on the B sample and whether there's anything in that, and that's a red herring anyway. The point is that probably needs further investigation. But the simple fact that's there, you cannot allow a sport as dangerous as boxing to go ahead when that is hanging over it. How does that look to the rest of the world? And the idea that anyone should be pushing for it to go ahead at all, knowing that, to me, is bordering on insane.
Very much so. And this fight is not like any other, certainly not yet on DAZN, especially in the UK. This is a massive fight, a massive investment. It is a huge driver for them and a hammer blow for DAZN.
Absolutely, and I get that. I drove in earlier on this morning to come here on the A40. I passed 2 enormous billboards with Eubank-Benn, DAZN pay-per-view. And that's on the outskirts of London.
It's a very big fight.
I'm hearing, whether there's any truth in it, I'm hearing rumours that they'd already sold something like 400,000 to 500,000 buys. That's what I'm hearing. Wow. There may be nothing in that. That may be fluff around the edges of a story. But the point is, the eggs are in largely one basket for DAZN, and there has been pressure on them. That's a company that's losing millions, if not billions, for the last couple of years. And so there's pressure on them, and this was the breakout fight. This was the breakout event, and therefore that's pressure on Matchroom and that's pressure on Eddie Hearn to deliver. But that shouldn't matter. There is no amount of money you can put on whether or not this fight should go ahead. There is no amount of money in the world on whether this is right or it is not right. And that's the question you have to ask yourself. And when Eddie Hearn goes to bed tonight, that's the last thing he should ask himself before his head hits the pillow. And when he looks in the mirror when he's brushing his teeth, that should have been the first thing he was thinking this morning as well.
Now, over the last 24 hours, I mean, we've had so much information, so many things have changed minute by minute. One of the things that was discussed was, if it's not sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control, could we see it go to Bieber? Could we see it go to the Luxembourg Board of Control, as we saw H. Azora all of those years ago at Upton Park? Could it go to the Maltese or the Austrian? It hasn't done that. And Eddie Hearn came out earlier on and said, if it's not under the British Boxing Board of Control, we will not be going rogue. We will not be going ahead with it. I guess that's something that we don't have a kind of essentially an unsanctioned fight or a sanctioned fight by a foreign governing body.
Yeah, I mean, I was at early days of Box Nation, and it turned out to be a wonderful event. Different parameters in terms of whether that fight should go ahead. It was a different set of circumstances. We weren't dealing with a positive test. We were dealing with boxers who had infringed other areas prior to it, with a brawl and out in Munich. It wouldn't have set a dangerous precedent had a foreign entity been brought in. It would have undermined the British Boxing Board of Control. It would have potentially set up a blueprint for the future for Eddie Hearn, for Matchroom, or for whoever to say, we don't need you. I think boxing needs the British Boxing Board of Control. I think boxing needs a strong British Boxing Board of Control, but they have essentially been poked into a corner in this one. And I suspect my reading of it behind the scenes is, with the litigation that is ongoing, and we're going to get answers to probably in the next few minutes, I suspect there's been a large degree of intimidation on the part of Matchroom and DAZN to the Board of Control, essentially putting pressure on them. And I suspect the board is not cash rich. And what we know is the financial muscle behind Matchroom and DAZN is significantly greater. And when you've got that muscle, it's easier to intimidate someone who doesn't have the money in the coffers. And the threat of that legal action, that probably was pretty real for the board. And that's a dangerous line to go down. If you're scaring our governing body into maybe backing out. I'm hoping that the reverse of that is what's transpiring as we speak.
Castillo, the right thing, if indeed the fight is cancelled, the right thing?
Definitely the right thing. Unfortunate, but it is the right thing to do. As much as I'd like to see the fight, as much as they've trained, they've put in the hard work for the fight, it's a sticky one. But the right thing is the right thing. And should any of them get hurt this weekend, that would be a bigger stain on boxing for everybody.
Now, Alex, let's touch upon that. These are two families with a rich history in boxing, but it's not all sweetness and light. They're both steeped in tragedy, of course. The Michael Watson rematch for Chris Eubank, the Gerald McClellan war with Nigel Benn. We've even seen Chris Eubank Jr. have it with Nick Blackwell, who was irreparably damaged after their bout. If something like that were to take place after the fight, with everything surrounding the fight, with the weight classes, with the rehydration clause, and now the adverse analytical finding for Conor Benn, how damaging would that have been for the sport? What a risk that would have been to take.
It's simply too big a risk to take, is the bottom line. And if you're a journalist, the backstories are plentiful. This story writes itself. If the worst case scenario that you're talking about, that's the story that writes itself. And there's a lot of weaponry and ammunition, if you're a journalist, to put into that story as well. So you're right to mention that, even although they're slightly different elements to the discussion as well. But that's the whole point. I saw people talking earlier on today about conversations going on behind the scenes. The fact that there's any more than one conversation going on is simply too much hot air. There's only one conversation here in this instance, in this discussion, and that is it right, is it appropriate for a fight like this, any fight, to go ahead when one of the participants has failed a drug test? I think your viewers and listeners know the answer to that. I know the answer to that, and I think you gents have already hinted that you know the answer to that as well. There is only one conversation in town, and the answer to that conversation is what we're waiting on right now.
Alex, I do appreciate your time. So, final question from me before I let you go. I know you're a very busy man. We've seen, UKAD this, VADA that, the British Boxing Board of Control, and how desperately does boxing in general, not just in this country but around the world, need an overarching sanctioning body like football has a FIFA, like American football has the NFL? How desperately do we need this in sport?
Yeah, it's the dream scenario. It's boxing's nirvana, isn't it? And unfortunately, it's so far out of reach that it's just a dream. It's a pipe dream, and it's almost unthinkable. But yes, and by the way, boxing fans like to talk about the UFC as being the answer. It's not. The UFC is a monopoly. Fighters don't necessarily get paid what they deserve or what they're worth, whereas boxers and boxing at least has the scope to do exactly that. So the UFC is not the answer. But what boxing does have is way too many parts. And unfortunately, with all of those moving parts, in America, for example, all of those athletic commissions whereby you theoretically you fail a drug test in one, you could fight in another state. Or you transgress in one area and another athletic commission says, don't worry. I mean, it happened with Lewis against Tyson all those years ago. You get another commission say, well, we're not bothered about a brawl in New York. Come, we'll take the money. Not a problem. And boxing has all of those moving parts. Even in this instance, the British Boxing Board of Control recognised UKAD. Eddie Hearn has gone on record previously as saying he is a respecter of VADA. And obviously you've got that clash coming up this week. But that's what boxing needs. But whether it's this country or across the world, we are so far away from that it simply is just a pipe dream. But that's what is required here, because ultimately there are too many moving parts, and ultimately the players can often please themselves. I'm hoping in this instance that's not going to be the case.
A dream indeed, and we can dare to dream as boxing fans. Alex Stevens, a real pleasure having you on ID Boxing. Thank you so much for giving us your time on what has been a very, very hectic day here at the Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn press conference. We are still live. We are still awaiting an official announcement. I have just been told that is expected imminently, that something is being filmed upstairs with regards to
very soon, bro.
Making a release. The mood has certainly dipped around this room in here. I think the murmurs are starting to come out now.
We need some food, boys. We've been here too long waiting for an announcement, and we're hungry. What should we do for lunch?
Are you going to go and get some food?
Well,
as in bring it back from me and Castillo, because we still got to work. So okay. Castillo, what are we going to have?
What we got?
Not going to lie, bro. I kind of want a little fruit thing, you know.
You love doing the most with the fruit. Every day. So Castillo's trying to get into shape.
I'm trying to be like swimming.
Castillo's trying to box on the Misfits
Big
boxing
man
shows. What are we going
I
for?
don't know.
KFC, that's very topical at the minute. We could get some KFC.
I mean, I don't know. That's
Did
what
you
we
really
need.
come over to ask me if I wanted some food?
Yeah, that's actually.
Just order some food.
Well, no, not to ask you if you want food, because I know the answer.
I was going to say,
what food are we getting?
I tell you what, let us know in the comments, and also make sure it's halal for Ben Faruqi. Shout out Benjamin Faruqi every time. If it wasn't for Ben, we'd be sitting here on our iPhones on a Twitter space. Go and order some food in Gavi. You've had enough.
Big man thing.
Freak out anything.
CBS, bruv.
CBS.
Make sure you follow him.
The machine. Big fan of Chris Billingsmith, aren't you?
Of course, man. I'm telling you, when people go watch that fight with him versus Chamberlain, bruv. It's one of the best fights you'll ever see. One of the best fights this year, bruv. Madness. Became a fan of both of them, bruv. I was a fan of Chamberlain. Now I'm a fan of CBS, bruv. Look out for both of them. It's a mad thing.
We're still waiting here. We're still waiting for the official announcement, guys. We hate to kind of keep teasing you on the live chat. I mean, I have been told, kind of off the record, but it's live anyway, that the fight is off. And we've seen Matt Lawton, we've seen Riyadh, of course, from the Daily Mail, who initially broke the story, say that the fight's off. It's the one and only. It's Big Man Ting meets Baby Ting here at the press conference. We might have to zoom out a little bit to fit you in the shot. Dean, how are you?
The big man himself.
All good, man. All good. I see Coogan over there, that wanker. But anyway,
shout out to the ops, bruv. Shout out to the ops. You get me?
Come on. What's good? What's good?
You tell me. I mean, you've been around the sport. You've been very close to the sport over recent years, especially. I don't remember seeing something like this, what we've seen in the last 24 hours or so.
Eddie Hearn working his magic. Miracle Man.
I'm not sure if there's any miracles that can be made with this one. It's okay. We've been having phones out all the time. If you need to go and do your thing, we'll be more than welcome to bring you back. But yeah,
how are you feeling about this right now?
One.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, obviously. But like I said, the Miracle Man, if anyone can do it, would be, fast cars with his fast tongue, fast chick, fast lawyers, fast everything, his own money. So, other than that, I don't know. But like you say, it's a tricky one because it's out in the public domain, in the realm, and everyone's having their 2 pence in it at the minute. The boxing board has said, it's prohibited. Yeah, you know that word there. You know them words. Prohibited. Let's say that again. So, obviously.
I think prohibited, bro.
So, you know what I mean? But look, as boxing fans, you would like to see the fight. They put a lot of money and time, so I get it. But obviously, I don't know too much about their fence. I won't go into. I like Conor. I like Eubank.
That's the plug calling, bro.
Yeah, I like Eubank. So it's a tricky one. And boxers are emotional characters, so they always carry feelings, as my man knows here. You rub them up the wrong way, you will be. They'll be on your back.
So I got to ask you though. So for a fighter like Conor Benn right now, there's a lot of pressure on him. The tweets, the social media. What words would you have for him right now? Because we also got to care for the fighters. Because it is a big sport.
Look, Conor's been in the game a long time. He's come from good stock. His dad was a top athlete. He's doing good stuff. I don't know what's going on, really. I don't want to pass too much judgment. I'm sure they're talking about a B sample and whatever. So, it's innocent till proven guilty, really. So I don't want to go and talk too much about it. So, I hope he keeps his chin up. Hopefully this fight gets made and we see who comes out victorious. But it's looking like a real long shot at the minute, So I don't know, man.
As we mentioned just before you joined us here, we are expecting an imminent announcement that the fight is off. Do you think that we see the fight rescheduled somewhere down the line, considering everything in the build-up to this, with the weight disparity, with the rehydration, and now with the adverse analytical finding for Conor Benn? Do you think that we see this fight somewhere down the line?
It might be down the line. It might be a long line. I'm not sure. It might be a short line. I don't know, but potentially down the line. Obviously, there's, I'm sure, in boxing, I think money talks, bullshit walks. It's 100%. A business. People got to understand it's commerce. So it's a different situation. And it just depends how he comes out rosy on the other side of what's going on. Eddie said there's lots of negative tests that he's done. So if that's the case, kudos to him and happy he continues his career and he'll be fighting again soon. You know what I mean? If not, I don't know. I don't know what happens.
But should the fight actually go on, who would you predicting to win?
I'd like the fight to go on as a boxing fan. But
is it in the best interest of the sport, as the British Boxing Board of Control came out yesterday and said, as you said, that word prohibited, because it's not in the best interest of the sport?
Who said it wasn't in
British
the
Boxing Board of Control?
Like who, as the fans, have they nominated that? Is
the British Boxing Board of Control who sanctioned the fight?
They're a business. They're just a business. They make money out of this, just like anyone else. If like they can try and use another sanctioning. It's business. They
Eddie Hearn has said that he's not going to do that. He's not going to go with another sanctioning body.
he's not trying to do
No,
Luxembourg.
we have been live for kind of 2 hours or so now. We are expecting the fight is off.
It's off. British Boxing Board, it's off if it's British Boxing Board.
No, in general, the fight, we're expecting the fight is off.
Okay, so yeah, it'll be off. But I mean, going back to the question again, sorry.
Do you believe is that the right move for the best interest of the sport? While the shroud of judgment and the cloud of judgment is over Conor Benn?
It's innocent until proven guilty. So at this minute, to get all the evidence together in such a short space of time, can they do that? I don't know. I don't believe they can.
But is it worth the risk before you can get that done? Is it worth the risk?
Eubank Jr. is a seasoned, experienced professional. What is the risk?
Of him potentially fighting somebody who has tested positive.
He's fighting people who's been on the roads already. What do you mean? I don't know.
But without it being kind of publicised 3 days before the fight. Do you understand that's a different type of situation?
I kind of understand it, but that's politics. I'm not a politician. I'm on boxing and fighting. These guys have trained their arse off to get to the fight. They've paid for spar. There's a lot of money being lost. We're only looking at
that's
one
the
side
financial
of the coin.
aspect and the financial element.
There's a lot of L's being taken. Matchroom, DAZN, I put a lot of money into the promotion of all of this. There's a lot of money to be lost in that aspect. When you look at the fighters, have put a lot of time on. Sure, they're both at their best. Even though Eubank's talking about 60%, he's probably at his best because it's bragging rights. So the blood, sweat, and tears these guys are putting, dieting, whatever it is, probably having mood swings and cussing teammates, family members. There's a lot of emotions been going through when you're in boxing, in camp, sparring and going through stuff. For it to get pulled under the rug so close, it is hard. And, he's a fighter, Eubanks. And he said, fuck that, man, I'll fight. I don't care what anyone's on. I'll beat the shit out of them motherfuckers. And that's his mentality. I'm sure Ben's got the same. That he's saying, look, I'm clean. I just want to fight and prove I'm the better man out of these guys. We could still deal with this element after the fact.
One of the big things in the build-up to this, of course, is they're both very famous fathers. They had those wars in the 90s was massive for British boxing, but they did have their own tragedies. They had the Michael Watson rematch for Chris Eubank. We had the Gerald McClellan bout for Nigel Benn. With all of the controversy coming into it with regards to the weight, the rehydration clause, you throw an adverse analytical finding into the mix as well. If the worst were to happen, that would surely be incredibly damaging for the sport.
Absolutely, but let me quickly put a little bit of education, because I don't know. The Dark Destroyer, yes, somewhat. Algieri, tail end of his career, great win. That was, I think, good timing. Canelo was perfect at timing, at picking guys at the right time. I think Eddie Hearn and his team, I'm not saying Conor Benn. Conor Benn is probably one of the most improved athletes who's trained and got himself and turned his career around and done tremendous. But what I mean is picking guys, the guys he has faced, he didn't stop Paynard 2 times. Is that Paynard? Is that pronunciation? Good fight. He's improved since then. He didn't stop him. He's fought a very tough, rugged, durable Formella recently. Didn't stop him. Eubanks has a better chin than Formella, and a better fighter than Formella. George Groves fought Eubanks and didn't stop him. And he was one of the fierce punchers in his division at middle, super middle, light heavy, whatever he boxed at his peak. Even in his sparring days, he was an absolute wrecking ball at doing his thing. And he didn't get to stop Eubanks. So why am I believing someone who is no more than a welterweight at best or a light welter beforehand is going to go and stop someone with this kind of chin and this history? I understand if you get caught, he's going to be very sharp, explosive. But let's weigh it up in terms of, the pedigree of fighters they face. Eubanks has faced better opponents, more experience, and those guys haven't stopped him. Hell of a chin, taking great shots, and knew how to deal with that adversity in the ring. Conor, on the other hand, has stopped all these guys. I feel like the stoppage against Granada, is it? Or whatever that is?
He went the distance with Granados. He stopped Chris Van Heerden. He stopped Chris Algieri.
The one in the first round.
Samuel Vargas.
That was, I think, a premature stoppage for me. If you know Vargas and you're an experienced ref, you know he takes a lot of punishment. If you go and look at all his fights, he takes a lot. He's renowned for his durability and toughness. They were eye-catching shots, but his eyes were still there. They weren't glazed. He was there. And he was even cussing, saying, why did he stop the fight? He did take a lot of big shots. But in the UK, I feel like the refs, they've been lacking in terms of some of the stoppages they've had in here. When you go in America, if you look at some of the guys over there in some of the stoppages, Tyson Fury would be defeated now if we had that same,
thing with them stopping fights because he was out and he was on the floor. The refs over there have a little bit. They watch things and if you, I think I watched a podcast and they break down. They what they do is they study fighters and who is more durable and you know who's punch resistance and stuff like. I think one of them was it Jack Reese. I think was. Yeah, so, yeah, I know. Yeah, but I mean, he was talking about the fight and, you know, talking about things, him studying fighters who are durable and who ain't and what punch. And he was looking at it and he was saying, you know, because of certain things, he'd be close to making certain decisions at certain times. But because he knew Fury was quite durable, he kind of gave a little bit of latitude in certain aspects. He looked at him, clearing his eyes, and he could see that he was focused. And in that fight, I felt like these guys stop fights too early in the UK. They need to educate themselves a little bit more, the refs, and do a little bit more work on who is durable, who ain't, who can take punishment, and so on. Because, I mean, I'm not taking anything from Conor. That was a great, you know, combination, what he put together to kind of get their head going back and stuff. At the same time, we must look at the guys he has faced and hasn't stopped. And then we're going to say he's going to go up in weight, up a level in experience, and then he's just going to blow this guy out of the water. Possibly because of the, you know, if the weight cut does affect you, but we've seen him, I don't know if that was real or it wasn't, him eating and messing about, and then he looked in great shape when we saw yesterday. But it all be mind games. You know, boxing's all about trickery and mind game, chess, Jedi moves, and steps ahead that people want to gain, even if it's minimal steps. But I think there is a lot of experience in Eubanks, and I mean, Connor's done great. So either way, win, lose or draw, his stock rises anyway. So
100%.
he's not in a,
Just back to this fight and whether or not the fight is going to go ahead on Saturday night. I think the general feeling, the overwhelming feeling, certainly from our viewers, and you speak to journalists from all over the country, all around the world, indeed, in here, is that the fight should, for the best interest of the sport, because I feel that way, it should be postponed due to everything.
Interest that is cancelled. What does that do for the sport? It says we stamp out.
It makes a statement against anti-doping.
So we punish people without the evidence first. It's like, you know, when you get like suspicion. It's suspicion.
There's no
It's
suspicion.
it's
There's a test that was positive.
Still not. But he hasn't been punished for.
Because the B sample hasn't been tested.
Okay. Well,
but that's fact. That's not conjecture. That's fact. So I believe that is fact.
When you go to court, you have to be proved guilty and sentenced for a crime. Is that not correct?
No. That is, of course, that is a fact. But the B sample must be tested in order for it to be.
Argue the fact. I'm just saying. I'm a boxing.
But again, you asked about the best interest of the sport. No, of course. Look, we're gonna everybody's gonna lose money. DAZN gonna lose money. We're gonna lose a lot of money covering this. No, not yourself. But with regards to sending a message, with regards to
100%, man.
With regards to sending a message with regards to doping and control in the sport. Do you not believe that this is in the best interest of the sport?
If when you're looking at that aspect and you want to stamp down things and you want to make an example, then obviously that would be in the interest.
Pending an investigation, of course, innocent until proven guilty. There needs to be a full. But is it not in the best interest of the sport to not have the air?
You must be presumed innocent before proven guilty.
But a full investigation surely must have to happen.
Will speaking person. Regardless, because people get, things happen to them and everyone casts aspersions and they find them guilty before anything's said and done. So I'll leave it at that. Listen.
Should a full investigation be taking place beforehand?
Whatever they fancy doing, let them do it. Ain't nothing to do with me. Good luck. Let's see what happens Saturday.
Dean White, always a pleasure. Thanks very much. Before we go, let us know what you've got coming. Of course, you are not only a manager, promoter. What have you got coming up for us in the future?
And a coach. And
a coach, of course.
Yeah, come on. November the 5th, we got Black Box Global, back in blood. So, yeah, if you want to get down to it, we're going to have some great fights. I'm heading to Ghana, hopefully, at the end of October. A couple of days before my show, I've got 3 fighters fighting in Ghana. So, listen, I just came back from America. I was at the Canelo fight. That was pretty good.
You're always getting around, aren't you?
Yeah,
Babysitting jet set lifestyle.
Come on, man. We work, man. That's what we do. We live the life, man. You know what I mean? We good before boxing and we'll be good after boxing. You know what I'm saying? So I brought some guys to America, John Harding and Shakan Pitters. They were sparring with the DeVille brothers for
I saw Shakan Pitters doing some pads with Sugar Hill.
Yeah, with Sugar Hill. So them boys got some good work. They was sparring the kid for that Caleb Plant fight on November the 5th. So they got good rounds and good, learning things. So I think that's something I might do a bit more, with some of the boys I've got. Because I think if you want to be someone in the sport and educate yourself, you must graduate and move abroad and come out of the comfort of your home and your country. Because here, people fall into bad habits of familiarity. So I think, to learn and progress, you want to kind of build up, go abroad, Germany, Europe, wherever you want to go, and then go to America. Because I'm saying there's a lot more teachers than coaches there. Maybe some would agree, some don't, but I definitely agree. So, yeah, we had a great time. But, coming back now, we're working November the 5th. I'm hoping to have we're trying to work out an Southern area eliminator for one of the kids and some other stuff. So we're just grafting, man. Black Box Global to the world, man. We're outside.
Big man thing, November the 5th, bruv. Look in for that. Come on.
Thanks very much, as always.
very much,
Always
as
good to
always.
catch up with you, and we'll catch up with you soon,
Yes,
I'm
man,
sure.
bro. Thank you for that, G.
Thank you
Wow.
very much. So, do we have an official announcement yet? Do we have something official?
Fans' questions here.
We've got some fans'
the
question
fans'
here.
questions, come on.
Okay, so we're not going to ask that one.
Let me see. What's the first one?
Yeah, we're not going to. Yeah,
Ah,
we're
yeah,
not-
that's-
Is the undercard presser still going ahead? And if so, does this mean that the show is still going on? From Charlie Bentley. Yeah, the undercard presser is still going on. I mean, it was due to be 3:30 for a 4 p.m. start. We are, of course, now at 20 to 4. I believe that kind of leads me to believe that the undercard presser's done. I'm being told by the man, the myth, the Sport Bible King,
Come on.
that the undercard presser is now done. That leads me to believe
It's
that
not
the
happening,
show
bruv.
itself
It's
has
not
got to be
happening.
canned. Surely the show itself is looking like it's off. So Charlie
not
Bentley,
looking good, bruv.
it's not looking good, bruv. Will Junior at least get 60% of his purse to cover the Salt Bay? I don't know. We had Anthony Crawler over here. We'll ask him a minute ago. He, of course, is Salt Bay's doppelganger. Just going to try and get through these here. So it's officially off. Is that the right decision in your opinion? We had a very interesting conversation with Dean White there where he put over his point of view. Your point of view, is it the right decision
Big
in
man
your
thing,
opinion?
as much as I want to see this happen, at the end of the day, you don't want to see anybody get hurt, bruv. You get me? Like, you live to fight another day, like Craig's dad said in Friday, bruv.
Yeah.
Come on.
You win some, you lose some.
Come on.
But you live. You live to fight another day.
Come on.
Yeah, it was next Friday when he's got the toilet. Yeah, that was me this morning
Big
after
man
the Indian
thing.
last night. In my opinion, yes, it's absolutely the right decision that the fight is off. I believe that in the best interest of the sport, as we were talking about there. And I also believe that it sets a dangerous precedent, which we've spoken about numerous times during this live stream. Look, Conor Benn deserves to have a full trial. He deserves to have the opportunity to clear his name. But with this hanging over his head, boxing is a tough enough sport as it is. Apparently, the camera needs refocusing. How are we getting on over there? We're all good.
Come on.
So yeah, is the fight? Yeah, I think it's in the best interest
looking
of the
that way, to
sport.
be
Yeah,
fair.
and
It's looking that way.
the fight is off. Gonna try and get through these. Is Rob now going to get a huge pizza tomorrow? Well, tomorrow's Friday.
You never know, bruv. You never know. We don't know what's happening, bruv.
Always in the game
For
for a
we
huge
know, we
pizza.
might find out it might happen. We never know. We never know.
I think it's safe to say that the fight
Might
is
do in
not
Eddie's
happening.
backyard, bruv. Come on. Never know.
We return back there. Sorry, 1 second. I'm trying to. Can you? Just while we're just going to try and get through this. Is there a good chance that the fight will be scheduled? I think the fight
Hopefully.
will very probably be rescheduled at some point. You made the point here about kind of raising intrigue and interest around the fight.
100%. And if it is off, which is looking like that, and next year build up would be mad. With this involved as well, the build up would be a mad thing. They could triple the money, bruv.
And obviously, we have to make sure that everything is followed carefully, and there's a full investigation.
Gently,
And as we said, Conor Benn gets the opportunity to clear his name and have a full hearing. But with all of this going on, I think it's fair to say that this is probably the right thing to do, to reschedule the fight or look at other avenues. We appreciate everybody wants to get paid. Fighters want to get paid. Promoters want to get paid. We're going to lose a lot of money here. So please,
Come on,
everybody,
bruv.
like, comment, and subscribe for ID Boxing to remain in business. Do you expect fines and suspensions? I don't know,
Hopefully
to be
not,
honest.
bruv.
We
You get
don't
me?
know, because
Hopefully
also, we've had in the past where Jarrell Miller failed for every drug under the sun, and he had no ban. He was, I think, because he didn't have a valid license at the time, he managed to find a workaround. We've seen fighters get banned for 6 months for hardcore performance-enhancing drugs. We've seen fighters get 2-year bans for recreational drugs. So I don't really know. Is the whole card off? Yes, I believe so. The whole card is off. Just trying to get through a few of these here. Is Eubank getting compensated?
That's a good question for you.
It's a
You
good-
know about the boxing world. Will he be compensated for this?
I'm not sure. I think
Has that ever happened in boxing before?
I mean, like, you can, but it comes down to what happens with the fight. I mean, now the fight has been called off, and Chris Eubank Jr. is not at fault here. This is not his fault that the fight has been called off. It may not be Conor Benn's fault, but it's certainly his adverse analytical finding that has led to the fight, allegedly, or we're waiting for the fight to be called off. Does Chris Eubank Jr. now have legal recourse here? Is he able to sue and try and get some of his money back? We all know that boxing camps, it's expensive, as Dean White said there. You're paying sparring partners, you're paying for equipment, you're paying for all sorts of things that you don't ordinarily get the money back. But this is not his fault, so it's a good question.
Might want to secure the bag, bruv. You never know.
Where is the B sample? The B sample is in the testing. It's still in the testing lab. I think people are sometimes get confused. It's the same urine in 2 different pots. The A sample gets tested, the results get sent back, and then with regards to the B sample, it is tested at a later date. What quite often happens is you get a representative from the team, whether it's a lawyer, a manager, a scientist, or somebody like that, will go to the laboratory to ensure that there's no cross-contamination, that everything can go along in a...
Hopefully it's not in the River Thames right now, bruv. You get me?
Yeah, hopefully it's
We
not on the
hope,
River Thames.
you
Well,
get
you're going to have to go in there and get it. Not a question, but they should let the undercard go ahead and make the cash fight the main event and not pay-per-view. Would you be up for that, Castillo?
Big man saying, yeah, I'll be up for a main event, bruv. As long as they give me the main...
No, you fight, not you fighting
my
Felix
bad,
Cash.
my
Just
bad,
the card
bruv.
going ahead without
Do you know
the
what?
main event.
In a way, they had COVID with nobody with no people in the audience or nothing, but at the same time, it's just a bit of an anti-climax. You know what I'm trying to say? But on the other fighter side, I do believe that they should get something from this, because, like you said, training camps, everything else, it's not free. Do you understand? And they've put in the hard graft. You saw Lyndon Arthur come here a little while ago talking. You could see him. He's in great shape. I saw him drinking water. You could tell literally he's still very much focused. And I feel like for it to not go through, it's a big disappointment. They should get something.
Yeah, and I think we crossed this path. We crossed this path earlier when we spoke to some of the undercard fighters. Of course, Matty Harris was very adamant that he wanted to fight, that he believed that he should fight. We see Chris Billum-Smith speak about his stablemate Ellie Scotney, who was due to box for the European title. She's not going to get paid now, most likely. So,
and she was looking very good in the ring yesterday. I saw her doing the pads. She was focused, bruv.
Very sharp indeed. When is Chris going to KFC? I would assume he's probably there now. Whether or not, which one would you take? So you've got to make a weight you've not made since you were young, but you're also not allowed to have sex with your girlfriend. Which one of those issues are you taking care of first?
I'm not going to lie, the food thing, you know. I'm not going to lie, bruv. Like, Nani's all well and good, bruv, but man needs a chicken burger out here. Come on.
Ricky Hatton, the legend
The
himself,
legend right
is going
now.
to join
Ricky
us
Hatton,
here
come
on
on.
ID Boxing. Ricky, of course, trainer of Chloe Watson, who was due to box on Eubank-Benn this Saturday. Ricky, it appears that the fight is no longer going to go ahead. What can you tell us about the undercard with your fighter?
Well, I'm devastated for Chloe, to be honest. She's worked really, really hard for it. And for someone with only 3 fights under her belt to be performing on such a high platform and such a big stage, it's obviously very upsetting. But I think we could say for everyone on the undercard, they probably all feel the same. I mean, they've forked out expenses, for the training camps, for the food, for the petrol, for the this and that, and then at the end of it all, they're not going to get any money back because no one's going to get paid in it. So it's an absolute tragedy in it of a reason. But yeah, in the main event, I think all fight fans, a long time since we've been looking forward to a fight with this, of this magnitude, for a good while. So it's everyone's a loser, unfortunately, at the minute, innit? But it'd be interesting. It's just, in 10 minutes to find out exactly what's what. Yeah.
Ricky, of course, we know Conor Benn. We followed his career. I know that you've known him for many, many years. With the shroud of kind of uncertainty around his adverse analytical finding, do you think safety first, and this is the best thing for British boxing, that the fight potentially doesn't go ahead as it looked to be rescheduled at a later date?
Yeah, well, Conor's said to me, he says he doesn't know how this has happened, and I believe him. He's a fighting man. He's built, like his dad. He's built from the same cloth. You know what I mean? So I believe him when he says, I can't wait to get to the bottom of this myself. And I believe him wholeheartedly. I do. But at the end of the thing, we were stood here waiting on a decision. Is the fight going to take place? And that, listen, at the end of the day, rules, even though I believe Conor when he says it, rules are rules. Drug tests are put there in for a reason. And if there's a performance-enhancing drug, what he's taking, which will enhance his upon over the opponent, then it's off. And the board of controllers said they're having nothing to do with it. So if it does go ahead, I'm just pondering what reason can they give. People are saying, the B sample's not come back yet. But I mean, it doesn't matter, the fight can't go ahead because a test has been failed. And that, what does that say to about our sport if it goes ahead? Rules are put there, all of a sudden, but it's always that bigger fight. We'll work our way around it. No, you can't. You failed the test. And I'm no doubt. I mean, Conor wants to get to the bottom of it, just like probably more than anyone, I reckon.
from a fighter's mentality, I mean, you were involved in some of the biggest fights of a generation against the likes of Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, Costa Zoo, all of those great nights that we remember for you. If something like this happened in the build-up to one of your fights as the opponent in Chris Eubank Jr.'s shoes, how would you be feeling about it?
Well, I wouldn't want to. Listen, at the end of the day, you want to fight, but if somebody fails a drug test, you know what I mean, which is obviously a performance enhancing one. I mean, it's I'd have to put myself in them shoes at the time. Were they saying, would you pull out or would you want to fight? I really don't know, because you've trained for it. You're getting paid. You're getting paid for it. You know what I mean, and that's the big ask. Never mind the rules. I think most fighters would probably turn around and say, you know what, I've trained for weeks about this. I've sacrificed so much. I'll be able to buy me first house out of this, or I'll be able to do this, or I'll be able to do that. Nah, I'm going ahead with it. I think it's a decision that the board has to take out of the boxer's hands.
Before I stop you there, Rob, I just have to tell the people right now, it's Ricky Hatton's birthday right now, yeah? We got to give that 44 right now looking beautiful as ever.
Over the news that we've probably just found out, I'm having the shittest birthday ever.
But you still got to do something to salvage it. So how are you going to celebrate today? What are you going to do to enjoy the day?
I don't know. I see what's happening. I mean, I'm actually in training out for my November 12th bout against...
I was just about to say, you're looking lean right now. You're looking very lean.
I'm in good shape. We've still got 6 weeks to go. I don't know. I might have a glass of wine in a bit. But... no, I'm looking forward to putting on a show on, just like the lads were looking forward to putting on a show on Saturday. Mine is going ahead. It got postponed. It should have been July 2nd, but now it's November 12th. And I've worked so hard to get in this shape and where I am at the minute. So it will be one of the most quietest birthdays Ricky Hatton's ever had. we have had some lively ones.
Ricky, just before I let you go, do appreciate your time. Final word on your son. Campbell, of course, has his own boxing career to look forward to, own promising boxing career.
Yeah, I think it's November 5th. He's boxing in Abu Dhabi on the Bibble on show. So it's another great platform, for Campbell. And he's improving, all the time. I'll be sparring with him in the next week or so, which will be interesting. I did it with him last time, but no, it's a good opportunity. He's improving all the time, and that's what he's got to keep doing at the minute. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and he's still very, very inexperienced. He's still a babby in this business, so we just need to give him time. But he's getting there bit by slowly, bit by bit. Yeah.
Ricky Hatton, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for stopping by with ID Boxing. Happy birthday and commiserations to Chloe Watson.
Big man Singh, the legend Ricky Hatton, bruv. Just shook his hand. I ain't gonna watch this now, bruv. You get me? Greatness.
What were your memories of Ricky Hatton? Obviously, he boxed Eddie Hearn. Is apparently, I've been informed by Jordan,
the big
Pollock,
man himself,
superstar producer. Yeah, that's the big man himself, Jordan Pollock, not Eddie Hearn. Coming back to make an official statement to the media, which is congregated here. We are, of course, expecting an official announcement that the Eubank-Benn fight is off, as well as the rest of the card. It's not looking good, bruv.
Definitely not looking good, bruv. But what is looking good, Ricky Hatton, you saw him in good shape. He's got an upcoming fight.
You're still buzzing from that, aren't you?
I'm not going to lie, bruv. One of the greatest fights of all time. You got to watch it. Costa Zoo versus Ricky Hatton. That was my introduction to Ricky Hatton. He was moving mad. I was thinking, who is this brother? He's on a mad one, bruv. You get me? Shout out to Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton.
You could have stepped in. Castillo versus Ricky Hatton would have done a
big
few
man thing, bruv. He'll bust me up, bruv. Like, we'll talk. Like, you could see. I'm not going to lie.
So we are waiting again. It feels like we've been waiting around for days on end.
Eddie's coming soon to do
we
a
are
little
still
statement.
going. Big up Sean Carter and Luke from Matchroom, the top videographers in the business. Going to get out of the way and make sure they get their due on ID Box in the live stream here. Thank you all for staying with us. If you look behind us right now,
it's actually a madness right now. Look at this. Like everybody just standing there, just waiting about. We're waiting for the final. We're waiting for the final word, bruv. It's going to be mad, but very disappointing. Doesn't sound like it's going to be good news, but we'll see, man. We'll see. Hopefully, Eddie can work the magic. Eddie can work the magic trick, bruv. Whip it out the bag, bruv. You get me?
We could end up with Eddie Hearn coming in and surprising the world and saying, "Is it kind of a Jordan Belfort style? I'm not leaving. The fight's on."
Come on, man. Wolf of Wall Street, bruv. Don't know. You never know.
Thank you so much for everybody who's remained with us. I mean, the people who have been with us from the start through all of the...
You're getting a real show right now, you know.
Yeah.
You're getting a real show.
I'd like to think that ID Boxing have been with you every step of the way. Whether or not it's been... we've got Don McGuinness, the one and only Don McGuinness is going to come and join us here live. Yeah, well, don't sell yourself short. We're the one and only Dom McGuinness, of course, one of the best minds in boxing. Dom, hell of a last, or it's probably 30 odd hours now that we've had here. But
familiar with this place.
Yeah, the last time we were here, I mean, you weren't here. I don't think you were here for Shields Marshall, were you?
I was.
You were here for Shields Marshall. It's all become one big blur.
Maybe I'm the curse because it's all been going on. I mean, with the Lee Wood thing as well. I mean, obviously it's been hard to get all these main events on, hasn't it? But the Shields Marshall one, I mean, we thought that was obviously there's a lot of waiting around with. We were at the press conference and all the reports about the Queen and everything else, and then it just obviously it didn't happen. So again, very very different circumstances, obviously, but it's what you're going to do.
The right thing for the sport that this fight is apparently, I mean, it appears so that it's not going to go ahead. The right thing for boxing.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it sends the right message out, doesn't it? I mean, if it's everything that we've been with the hearing and everything else, if it's transpired, then you've got to send the right message out. Of course, I mean, it's all about. I mean, it's been a crazy few weeks anyway for the sport. And if you think about the amateur game and IBA and grassroots and everything else, everything's got to come together. Everyone's got to be on the same page with this, and people have got to know what's right and wrong. And again, the sport doesn't need this with everything going on. And again, I keep thinking about the situation with the Olympics and everything else. And if you're going to encourage kids into the sport, all the right messages have got to be there.
And particularly for a fight like this, which does have such crossover magnitude. I mean, that it was on Good Morning Britain. They had the BBC pushing out stuff with a documentary that was due to air last night. For something like this to happen on such a grand scale, the fact that the fight's not going ahead, we can take some small solace in that fact alone.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, it's very disappointing for everybody. Everyone wants to see the big fights. Everybody wants to be involved in them. We want to be down here. We want to be enjoying the big occasions. But again, if it's the right thing to do, we've got to all accept that. And again, obviously, you look around here, the people, you really feel sorry for the undercard fighters. 100%. It's not just that. Obviously, there's a knock-on effect, staffing at the events and everything else. People lose work, so it's a massive knock-on effect. But if it's the right thing to do, it's got to be right. And the board was strong on it, and there you are.
We just mentioned Olympians and AIBA, and that's a whole other can of worms, which is probably best saved for another day. You mentioned there the undercard, Olympic gold medalist Galal Yafai, who was looking to resume his promising professional career. Just give Castillo, especially, and our fans watching there, what it means for the undercard fighters. They're not going to get paid for just coming here. They're going to lose money throughout their camp.
I'm hearing stories of a couple of the fighters that have booked holidays.
Oh, wow.
You booked holidays because you're getting paid. You've had a long training camp, and then ultimately it's all up in the air now. They're not getting paid. The holidays are in disarray and everything else. So that's the real impact.
That's the reality.
This is the reality. These young fighters that are just starting off on their path, they don't have money. They don't have. They're dependent on these big nights. They're dependent on the paydays. That's who you really feel sorry for.
Do you think we see this fight rescheduled down the line?
Again, there's so much up in the air at the minute, isn't there? So the whole situation with Conor has to be resolved. What happens to him, I don't know. Again, that's up in the air. I'm sure we need to learn more about the whole situation before judgments are made. At the moment, I think it was the right thing to do, given everything we know now, but we don't know everything. So until we do, then we see where we are. But I wouldn't be thinking about that yet.
I think that's well said. I mean, again, it's worth reiterating the point. I know we've said it throughout the course of this live broadcast. A due process needs to be undertaken. But while you've got concerns over the weight, while you've got an adverse analytical finding, I think we have to safeguard the sport. And what comes first for the sport is it has to be the integrity over the financial loss for everybody. Of course, you have one end of the spectrum with DAZN and Matchroom who have spent a lot of money. They've done a fantastic job at promoting this fight. We've seen billboards all over the place. We've seen, as I've said, Good Morning Britain. We've seen documentaries. It's been fantastic. But ultimately, the long-term prosperity of the sport has to come before anything else.
Of course it does. And that's exactly why, if the event, and again, it's not been officially announced, but if everything is off, then that's the way we've got to take it. You've got to take the positives, and the positives are that it might be it's a bruising week for the sport anyway, but less so than if the event had gone on.
I agree. Castillo, final words for Dom McGuinness before we let him go back to babysitting Anthony Crolla, because that's a full-time job, believe us.
I've got a journey all the way back to Manchester now with him. So yeah. What are you going to do?
Where does Conor Benn go from here then after this?
Well, again, we just got to wait and see what comes out with everything. And we've not heard Conor's. Obviously he was at the workout yesterday, and again we've heard what he said there. I think there's just we need more information. We need to know exactly where we are with it. We can't make any judgments until we know absolutely everything. So I'm sure that's Conor will want to fight his corner. Where he goes, who knows? It's a problem.
It's all up in the air for now, people.
Dom McGuinness, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to ID Boxing, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thanks, mate. So that was Don McGuinness. We're bringing everybody over here. I think there's only about 3 people in the room that we haven't spoke to yet. Eddie Hearn being one of them. Maybe we can get him to join when he comes through the door.
Big man ting, bruv.
Just having a look around to
See this live stream? It's a
scouting out any
legendary shit right now,
potentials.
bruv. Legendary things going on right now.
Yeah, fans' questions. Have I still got your phone? I don't know if I have. I'll put it down. I'll just use
Big man
mine.
ting.
What? Okay.
Going to do some questions right now.
Yep, undercard fighters are leaving. That's something that's
Undercard fighters are leaving, isn't it? Once the undercard fighters are leaving.
Undercard fighters have leaving. Yeah, Galal Yafai left. We've seen Felix Cash leave the building earlier on as well.
Very disappointing, as you heard as well. The undercards really do suffer in times like these, bruv. So shout out to them, man.
Still nothing on Eddie Hearn's official Twitter. Just going to go through some fan questions while we're waiting here. ID Boxing News. We must have been going for quite a while now, Ben. How long have we been going for?
Bruv, my conditioning's mad right now, bruv. My conditioning.
2 hours and 10 minutes.
Is mad,
Are your legs hurting? My legs are really hurting.
My conditioning's mad, bruv.
I mean, if there's any coffees going around anywhere,
man needs a herbal tea, bruv.
it would be great to grab
my
any kind of coffee.
mad, bruv. I could go 12 rounds right now, bruv. The stamina's mad.
I tell you who we haven't heard from, and he's just over there. I'm trying to wave him down. Robbie Davis Jr. is just over there. It'd be great to speak to Robbie Davis Jr. Of course, 140-pound contender, on fringe level for the world title. If we could get Robbie Davis Jr. to come over and join the live stream, my favourite scouser in boxing. Apologies to Tony Bellew. If we could get him over, Jordan's going to have to come and convince it. Here he comes. Robbie Davis Jr. on the way here. We are expecting, of course, an announcement from Eddie Hearn imminently. We are expecting an official announcement that the fight is off. Of course, on ID Boxing, we brought you that news about an hour ago, exclusive from the Eubank Junior press conference.
It's looking like it's not going to happen. I'm not going to lie to you, bruv. So you lot start getting your refunds for your hotels and that if you can get it, bruv. Boy, I have to holler at a gal. You get me?
You've still got your hotel room until Saturday.
Big man, don't tell them that, bruv. Don't know.
Here we go. We've got Robbie Davis Jr.,
Robbie Davis,
who also celebrated a birthday recently. Chris Swift. Chris, can I have some of your water, please? We've been going for 2 hours, 10 minutes here with no sustenance. We're doing okay. 9,000 people watching us here on ID Boxing Live. Robbie Davis Jr., of course, we're going to come to you as a professional fighter. We are expecting an official announcement that the card is off. Your immediate reaction to that as a professional boxer?
As a professional boxer, I'd be gutted for the undercard, me, because I know a lot of preparation, a lot of money and time's gone in for the undercard, and then it's out of their hands completely, obviously, because of the main event and what's happened. And literally, they're just all going home. They've probably been making weight today, trying out. I'd be gutted. I would be gutted.
The right decision?
As a boxing fan, we want the show to go ahead. As what's going on towards like the boxing board and stuff like that, it probably is the best thing that should happen. Because if one person gets away with it,
if you was in Eubank shoes and you knew that the opponent that you was facing, they got caught with something like this allegedly, how would you be feeling? Would you still want the fight to go ahead?
You've got to look at it as like, is he still confident enough he can win? Is he thinking of like the money he's going to miss out on as well? Me personally, I wouldn't want to jeopardise myself in thinking that this person could have the upper hand by taking whatever substance to make them better. But I'm just like on the fence with everyone. I'm just waiting to hear an official announcement on what's what. Do you know what I mean? But me personally, like I wouldn't take the fight. But when there's a lot of money involved and things like that, you don't know how someone else will be feeling.
Now, I can see in your face, I mean, in all seriousness, we know how close you are to Ellie Scottney, your stablemate, somebody who's prepared diligently for her European title bout. We haven't seen Ellie since kind of the murmurs about the fight and the card being off have been. You know her very, very well. How disappointed are you for your stablemate?
I've just been with her before I've come over to use. 1 minute she's hitting it on, next minute she's hitting it off. She doesn't know whether she's still making weight or she should just like fuck it off and just get on with it or what. She's in two minds. She's very deflated at the moment. So I think like word around the campfire now is that the show's not going ahead, but she's still, until it's from the horse's mouth, she's still sitting there, she's still holding on, she's still thinking I might be doing a session later, making weight.
So honestly, it's a head wreck, especially if you're fighting on a show like this, and it's just out of your hands.
What do you think happens? I mean, we are of course going to have to wait for a full investigation to be carried out into Conor Benn's situation with VADA. What do you expect happens? Do you think we see this potentially rescheduled at some point towards the end of the year?
Yeah, I don't know, because if you get an official ban for something like this, you mightn't be fighting at the end of the year. You might be banned for God knows how long. Like, I don't know how long you'd take a ban for something like this. I don't even know if you do get a ban for something like this. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's down for the board and all the officials and VADA and UK AD and all them to sort out. So just like the rest of us, just sitting to their but the magnitude of this fight and the way it's been carrying on, the build up, I think Chris and Conor have both been brilliant. The cheeseburgers and the 60% and all that.
Sorry, we're just going to have to interrupt there. Sorry, Robbie. We do have an official statement here that the fight is off. The fight is off. So I'm going to read it verbatim from Wasserman and Matchroom Boxing. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn fight update. After discussions with various parties, we have taken the decision to formally postpone the bout between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. It is undeniable that the British Boxing Board of Control's decision to withdraw their sanctioning was procedurally flawed and without due process. That remains a legal issue between the promoters and the board, which we intend to pursue. However, whilst there are legal routes to facilitate the fight taking place as planned, we do not believe that that is in the fighters' interest for those who have pursued at such a late stage, or in the wider interest of the sport. As promoters, we take our obligations and duties very seriously, and a full investigation will now need to take place. We will be making no further comment at this time, and news for ticket holder refunds will follow. So just to confirm there, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn is off. Postponed, not cancelled, so it does imply that the fight could take place at a later date. There will be legal proceedings, which have been referenced here by Wasserman Boxing and Matchroom, into the British Boxing Board of Control. They do not believe that the British Boxing Board of Control have grounds to withdraw the sanctioning of the event, but the fight is off.
It's not
no
looking
longer
good, bruv.
going ahead. It's
not
looking good, bruv. We've got the bout. So at the minute we don't have official confirmation with regards to the show.
So is the rest of the undercard possibly still going ahead, or
I have no idea. I've got the statement here. There's no reference in there to the undercard, but the main event is
So a live
off.
reaction for how you feel right now.
Do you know what? I half expected it because the board seemed like they were standing strong from the beginning, and if they were to go back on themselves halfway through, they would think it would have looked bad. So,
Do you feel that they've made the right decision, or?
as a boxing fan, I still wanted to see the fight, but in terms of boxing and what was right to do, I think it is the right thing. Do you know what I mean? So, I don't think anyone would argue with what's going on.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, the fight is off. We've been waiting for that official announcement probably for the best part of an hour now. We have, of course, been hearing through the grapevine that it is due to be called off. That is now official. The bout postponed. Matchroom and Wasserman Boxing continuing to pursue legal action with regards to the British Boxing Board of Control's decision to not sanction the fight in the best interests of the sport. Robbie, appreciate your time. I know that this has been a very disappointing day for yourself and your gym mate, Ellie Scottney. We'll hopefully catch up with you soon. As always, real pleasure. And happy birthday for the other day. I hope you got your rustlers. There we go.
Breaking news right here, bruv. Breaking
Castillo,
news.
your immediate reaction. Have a drink first. Cover it up because Sprite aren't paying. Yeah, but Sprite aren't paying.
Come on. It's a bit mad, but the decision is the decision. You get me? Fighter safety first. At the end of the day, we wanted to see it, but at the end of the day, we want to see them safe, bruv.
We're going to bring in Chris Smith.
Shout out to CBS. He's coming through right now,
Shout out to CBS, the machine himself. He's fed. All right for some, isn't it? Your immediate reaction. Don't mention the name. Don't mention the name.
Come on.
If you wanna sponsor Castillo,
Get
I'm not going to say the name.
Get your big man ting juice, man.
There we go. The big man ting juice. So, CBS, we've been waiting seemingly for an hour and a half for official confirmation that the fight is off. The fight is very much off. Your immediate reactions?
I think it's the right decision. I think if it was the other way around, I don't think we would have been here today. I think it would have been called off yesterday. I think if, there's been a failed drugs test, then there's no question asked with regards to that fight being off. Hopefully they can fight something for the rest of the show because, like I said earlier, devastated for the fighters on the undercard. They're the ones who probably they need the fights more because their careers are still building. They're not these massive pay-per-view stars. Ellie, my gym mate, I'm so gutted for her. She's looked phenomenal in camp. And that's not just a cliche statement. She's been really, really working hard. She's been sparring Michaela Mayer, who's a world champion, as well, and giving her good work. She was about to win a European title, which would lead her on to a world title. So that's monumental for her and her career. So that's been put back. When she can get out next, we don't know. Hopefully, we can get her out on the the team can get her out on the Katie Taylor card in a few weeks. But still, you don't know. And she's grafted, and she's never made weight so good, and everything's gone right, and then it gets pulled away from her at the last moment.
Commiserations, of course, not just to Ellie Scotney, but the rest of the undercard fighters, and indeed the main event and the promoters and the broadcast. But I think it's fair to say, I know we've discussed this earlier at great length, but the right decision for all parties involved with the uncertainty surrounding Conor Benn following his adverse analytical finding.
Yeah, I think so. I think if there's if that is that's the case that we know at the moment is Conor's failed a drug test. So I just can't see no other sport would even be in this situation where we're waiting, other than maybe MMA. For some reason, combat sports have got a different rules and different.
Why do you think that is? You're an intelligent guy. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because they're not. There's not a single governing body. The British board are the board of control, but they don't govern the fights. They have different. You have WBC officials involved. You have different officials involved and different. And it's just such a grey area throughout. There's not just like FIFA, for example, who then you have the FA, who are obviously under FIFA. That, for example, they called off the Premier League matches when the Queen passed recently, and they made that decision clear cut, done. And it's like they're the hierarchy, but the promoters are the ones running the show, and the promoters are a business, and they need to make money, and that's at the forefront of their minds. And I get it in a business sense, but there needs to be more common sense in the sport.
Okay, I'm just gonna, we've already obviously taken up enough of your time, and you didn't get me any food, so I don't want to keep you here any longer.
But before you go, we got to shout at the next fight. Shout, what's next?
Yeah, what comes next with Chris Billam-Smith after your Fight of the Year candidate against Isaac Chamberlain down in sunny old Bournemouth?
Hopefully we're back in Bournemouth in December. Waiting on offers now, waiting on a deal to get put in place. So yeah, hopefully we'll be back in Bournemouth in December, and then looking at a world title next year.
And before you go, shout out the socials. Where can they find you?
At Chris Billam on Instagram and Twitter.
Big man thing. Make sure you follow, bruv. He's a machine. Don't know.
Thanks.
Come on, bro.
Thanks very much. So there we have it, guys. The fight is officially off.
Officially off, bruv. You get me?
Castillo, it's not too late for us to refund your hotel room for the next couple of days. I need to save some money.
Through there, you get me? No, I'm joking. Anyway.
We've got Chris McKenna. Chris, it feels like it was quite literally hours ago that you were stood in the middle of myself and Castillo while it was still up in the air with what was going on. I think the last hour and a half or so, we've all been expecting this announcement that the fight is off. You saw the statement from the British Boxing Board of Control, from Wasserman Boxing and Matchroom Boxing. They are still contesting the British Boxing Board of Control. Your immediate reaction to that statement?
Well, it's not off, it's postponed, and I think that's the key thing.
Okay.
This legal kind of battle is going to go on. It's obviously clear that Matchroom are not happy with the board and the decision that they made. Why they haven't chosen to proceed like they were quite bullish about yesterday. Various things. I heard earlier today that they were going to go to the High Court this afternoon. That was in the plans, but I think those plans were abandoned later on because they felt that it would take too long to get a decision, and it could end up that it could be late on Friday until they got a decision. So with that in mind, with the effects that would have on the fighters, etc., I think they then decided to pull the plug. But obviously they're not giving up, and they're still not happy with what has happened. So where it goes from here, we don't really know. But for now, there's obviously no boxing on this weekend.
Unprecedented. We've seen issues in the past whereby we've seen, I don't want to say the British Boxing Board of Control or UKAD kind of bend on certain things, but I think it's fair to say that yesterday we all expected something to happen, whether it's not the British Boxing Board of Control. It could have gone to BIBA, the Luxembourg board, as we've seen years ago. Austria was mentioned, Malta. It hasn't gone that way. I can't remember anything it's similar to this happening in the sport.
No, in my time, I haven't come across it where there's been a positive test with one body and then the fight is still has a chance of going ahead. I know there's been, I think it was Oscar Valdez, which that was a different type of case, but certainly in British boxing, I haven't been through anything like this. But what changed this morning, I don't know, because there was obviously consideration of going with other bodies, but Eddie Hearn put out a tweet earlier and saying that he was never going to do that. But by that tweet, you could see that he was still fighting for this fight to go ahead. And then within an hour or two, it obviously changed when it must have been from whatever advice they got from lawyers that they felt that they said the decision was going to take too long to leave the fighters until Friday night, and not just the main event fighters. They've got to worry about the undercard fighters, which we just seen in the last kind of hour or so depart the hotel, most of them anyway. So yeah, it's been an unprecedented week. I think we need to sort it out that this doesn't happen again, and how we sort that out.
100%.
We kind of spoke a bit about that earlier, but how we sort that out, I don't know. But we shouldn't be going through issues like this. Whoever's right and whoever's wrong.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that we touched upon earlier. The people who have been with us for the last 2.5 hours will remember Chris McKenna and what we were talking about earlier about reform in the sport. How does boxing learn from instances like this, from issues like this? Chris, to recap on that earlier, where do we go from here as a sport?
I just say we need an overall sanction body. We need unity. We need VADA and UCAD and USADA and all of these to come together. It can't be. They should be all under the World Anti-Doping Association rules, and they should all be operating together in conjunction. Now, also in the meantime, UCAD have released a statement where the chief executive has come out and said they note that VADA's the Conor Benn's test, and they are appealing for people to come forward with information on that, and that's what we need. We need people to go to UCAD and let there be a proper investigation so we get an answer. Whether Conor Benn did that and wrong, possibly not. He deserves that right to go and prove himself, and British boxing and boxing fans deserve to know if anything untoward went on as well.
Just with Conor Benn there, where does he go from here, Chris?
It just depends on this matter. We need to kind of get more clarification from Eddie Hearn. Are they postponing it for a week? Are they postponing it for 3 weeks? That just doesn't seem feasible, as we said earlier, about the weight. Conor Benn, as I think, has got to go and make sure he gets his name cleared. Go and fight his case. Go through the due process. And then maybe if it does all clear, then we can have the fight again. But as I said in a piece to today, this fight shouldn't go ahead until the matter is cleared. And I'm glad that it's not going ahead.
So right decision made.
Right, 100% the right decision. Whether they've come about it the right or the wrong way, I'm not sure, because it's gone too far. I think as soon as they were informed that there was an issue with a drugs test, I think the fight should have been called off then. And again, that's going back innocent or guilty. There's an issue, it needs investigating. Boxers should not be in the ring while these things are hanging over them. They deserve the right of due process. If they've done anything wrong or right or wrong, they should be able to clear their name. But once this issue is ongoing, we have to clear it up. We shouldn't have any kind of doubts over it.
Right, Chris McKenna, thanks very much for joining us, not just now, but earlier on. Lyndon, I'm just going to grab you for 2 minutes. We've just seen the official statement from Wasserman Boxing and Matchroom Boxing that the main event has been postponed, not cancelled, postponed. This means the end of the show for yourself as well. Are you not going to be fighting on Saturday night now? We haven't spoke to an undercard fighter just yet.
I don't know. No, I'm going to eat, so if I am, put the weight up. Because, of course, I'm hungry, bro.
100%. 100%.
How difficult has these last couple of hours been for you? I know you're a very chilled guy anyway. You're a very laid-back character, but not knowing what's going on, still not knowing now, even after the statement, how's that been for you and how are you feeling now?
Just chilling, bro. I'm just chilling now. It's what it is. We can't do anything.
Gotta love it, laid back.
If you can't, what can you do about it? You can't do nothing about it. It's what it is. Fight's off. It's off.
What do you think about the decision for the fight to be postponed?
If they didn't, it would be going against everything that boxing stands for. So I kind of get it. I wish I'd seen the fight, but it is what it is.
Where are you going to go to get some food? That's the important question.
Where's the place now?
Look, I want Italian, I want pasta.
Big man thing.
Yeah. Lyndon Arthur, thanks so much for stopping by. We look forward to hopefully seeing you back in the ring sometime soon. Thank you so much.
Come on.
Lyndon Arthur, the most laid-back guy I think I've ever become.
I was really looking forward to his fight as well. I'm a big fan of Lyndon Arthur. So
it's good to see him back in the ring, making his way back up there. We've got Ron Lewis. We're getting back through everything now. Ron,
how you feeling?
I'm quite relieved, to be honest. I think, these sort of things can't be played with. And at the end of the day, which is a terrible expression, but he has to, you can't say he's guilty of anything until it's been sort of proven. He's got a right to sort of defend himself. But you can't just push on. You can't just push on when people have failed drugs tests. And the correct process is that they'll now have a hearing, and everyone will get to put their case. And from then we move on to what happens next. But you can't just sort of bury these things. And the idea of it going on is just nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
So morally, definitely the right decision.
Absolutely. I mean, it's sad, and I feel desperate for the people on the undercard. That's who I feel for. These people have trained for weeks. They turn up, and essentially, hopefully they'll get expenses. I feel sorry for the promoters. I mean, you can understand why they're, they've invested a lot of money in it. They've booked an arena. They put lots of, they put up lots of money for it, and all of a sudden, nothing's happening. It gets pulled at the last minute. It's tough for them. You can understand why, can't we just go through with it? Can't we just go through with it? But it's not the right decision. To push on with it would, where does it go then? Because then all of a sudden you have no rules, and it
opens up a door to
and people compared it to. I never thought they were going to go to an overseas sanctioning body. I just couldn't see that happening. For a time basis, as much as anything, how just suddenly turn up, a bunch of referees from overseas willing to do it and willing to fall out with the board over, and you don't want to fight sort of proof, by an injunction. Let's just sit back and let it all play out and see what happens. And it's disappointing, and people had tickets and this sort of thing, but God forbid if something had happened on Saturday and it turns out one of the guys failed a drugs test, and it's just like it's just not right.
Lyndon Arthur, of course, you mentioned the undercard. That seems to be a recurring theme here from people that we speak to. It is that immediate thoughts for the undercard fighters who are not getting paid. He said that if the main event were to go ahead, it stands against everything that boxing is about. Do you agree with that, Ron?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be about fair play, isn't it? And let's not overly condemn Conor Benn until he's had his hearing. He's entitled to a hearing, and but you can't just sort of cover these things up. You've got to actually play them out. That's the whole basis of sport. This whole basis of fairness, not just plug on regardless. And and whoever made the decision at the end, you can't just undermine them, the British Boxing Board of Control, and just get someone else in. And again, let's talk about when they were talking about when Luxembourg did Hayes Chisora. That was a very different matter. That was a disciplinary matter at the end of the day. And essentially, I believe they would have closed that loophole since then. And realistically, probably Brexit made it a bit harder to suddenly get a bunch of officials in from Europe from Latvia or whoever to cover, to suddenly do it. But it's all turned out in a way for the best. I mean, it's hugely disappointing, but you've got to take a long-term view. If you've got no rules, it's just the Wild West, and where's the justification for the sport if you can just do anything you want?
Ron, I want to talk about the statement, the joint statement that was released by Matchroom Boxing and Wasserman Boxing, of course, co-promoters in Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. The wording in there I found very interesting, one of which being postponed instead of cancelled, another which is that they fully intend to pursue legal action against the British Boxing Board of Control, who they do not believe had legal bounds and the right grounds to not sanction the fight. Just your thoughts on your immediate reaction, really, to the statement that was released just a matter of minutes ago.
I mean, I'm sure they hope that they can, put it on another date, and maybe they can. Maybe there'll be a hearing and move on. But the idea that they got no grounds at all, as far as I'd say. I think that's you can understand them being upset. You can understand them pursuing ways of getting it on, but. Let's not have boxing at war itself. And I know they've lost money. Obviously, they've lost money. But, it was the right thing. Let's not pretend it wasn't the right thing. If you got a guy who's failed a drugs test, and again, you think for what? It wasn't, people are comparing it to Billy Joe Saunders, aren't they? And let's say what that was for was a substance that in the UK, under UCAD and WADA, wasn't banned out of competition. And in competition is the day of the fight. This wasn't that. These are totally different things. And this is banned all the time. And if you say he's unlucky, if he says whatever, if there's a completely rational explanation, he gets a hearing. He should get a hearing. Obviously, you have a murky situation because you essentially have the testing regime that picked it up are privately hired by the promoters and the fighters, and they're not UCAD. It'd be much more straightforward if UCAD had picked it up, and so therefore, they're bound by different set of rules. But essentially, the bottom line is something's shown up in the drugs test, and because of that, the fight should not go ahead. And if they have a hearing, and they're thus cleared, then they have a hearing, and they are then cleared. But you can't. There's no point having a drug testing regime if you then ignore the drug testing regime, because it makes it utterly pointless. We all know boxing is a very, very dangerous sport. We've all been there when we've seen boxers get carried out of the ring on stretchers. We've all been there when we've been desperately waiting for news from a hospital. And this is all, let's not start messing around with undermining the authority of the British Boxing Board of Control. We should be strengthening the authority of the British Boxing Board. They've lost money. They've lost money by this show not going ahead. It's a brave decision by them. The easy thing, I suppose, is just to say, well, so what? They're happy to go ahead. We'll go ahead. That's not the right thing, though, is it? It's not the right thing.
Ron, I appreciate your time. So just final question for me, because as one of the premier sports writers in the country, I'm sure you're going to be very, very busy with all of this stuff going on. We spoke earlier about how damaging it would be potentially if it was to go ahead and the worst were to happen. Now the fight's been cancelled. Still not a great look for boxing, this whole situation.
It's not, but at least they pulled it back from the edge, didn't they? I mean, let's imagine if this had gone ahead and something awful had happened. Imagine the position
100%.
boxing would be in then. And suddenly something had happened, and it turned out someone had failed a drugs test, it got covered up, and someone got injured. Imagine that. Conor Benn will get a chance to explain himself, and we'll see. Hopefully, have a hearing, and there'll be a fair hearing, and then we'll go ahead and we move on from there. And if this fight goes ahead, then in February or whenever, then it goes ahead in February. This fight not happening on Saturday isn't the end of the world. There's a bigger sport than this fight. There's a bigger sport than money made or lost on pay-per-view this weekend. And, sometimes you have to take always you have to take a long-term view of the health of the sport. If the sport's not healthy, what have we got? And, there's such a sort of crash and burn thing sometimes in boxing that it's just like you push on and, it doesn't matter and what people say or what people do or how people behave. But it does matter, doesn't it? Everything matters. And, the long... It's not obviously this week isn't great for boxing. It's bad for boxing, but essentially, at least had it gone on, it would have been worse for boxing because suddenly we're in the Wild West and suddenly the regulator has no authority because completely undermined. Someone at the end of the day has failed a drugs test, and that's got to be looked at. Otherwise, there's no point in drugs testing.
Absolutely. As always, a measured response, a balanced view on things from Ron Lewis here. We are still reacting to Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn being suspended due to concerns over Conor Benn's adverse analytical finding. Ron, second time today, we're thanking you for your time. Thanks very much, and we'll catch up at some point soon. We're just having a little bit, so we can still hear the audio, or we can still hear the audio will stop for 1 second, but we're just changing the battery. We've been going for nearly 3 hours here on the live stream. My legs are absolutely dead. We're just waiting 1 second, Alex, for a battery change. So you can
We are back.
We are back. We're back.
Your live reaction from the news.
It's the right decision, isn't it? And I don't feel good about it. I have empathy for the fighters. I saw Galal Yafai on the way out. I know Gal from the amateur days when I used to see him around at competitions. So I went and spoke to him. He only found out about an hour and a half ago. That's a wasted camp. He's not getting paid. I have real sympathy for people like him across the board. And a lot of your listeners and viewers will be exactly the same. Yes, but it's the right decision. I'm really quite not surprised. I'm disappointed by the Wasserman Matchroom Co statement on the attack against the British Boxing Board of Control. The guy failed the drugs test. Own it. Own it. That's called deflection in the modern world. That's avoiding the main point here. A guy failed the drugs test. And you were pushing to go ahead with the show knowing that, and you've been forced into a corner. There's still the threat of litigation against the Board of Control, who are not necessarily muscled up and prepared for that. But that's their lookout. But that's deflection. That's missing the point. This show couldn't go on, number one. And blaming the board for the fact that it couldn't go on is entirely missing the point. That is, read the room. Read the room, because you're miles off the pace.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, I think we've had most people in this room over here on the live stream over the course of the last 3 hours. I think we've only had one person really throughout that time who has been an advocate for the fight actually going on. I think it's fair to say that this is in the best interest of the sport, which is not necessarily, no indictment on Conor Benn. He deserves a full and thorough investigation into what happened. But with the cloud of judgment the cloud going over the fight, this surely was the only decision.
Rob, if you're a boxing fan, and there are many, I had to take absolutely no positives out of this at all, other than the fact that the right decision has been made, and in a sense, a form of justice, moral justice, call it what you will, has come to bear, and the right decision has been made. But every boxing fan will greet this with a heavy heart, and what's transpired over the last 24 hours or so has been painful and difficult, and at times quite emotional. So this is a horrible situation. No one wins out of this, but I hope that some lessons have been learned. I hope Matchroom and Wasserman aren't going to pursue this entirely missing the point. But people have lost money, and it's expensive, and I understand their emotions will be running high, and wallets have been hit hard. I totally understand that. But this show couldn't go ahead, and unfortunately, as sad as it is to say, because we're boxing fans and we feel for the fighters, and we wanted the show to go ahead because we were looking forward to it, it couldn't, and the right decision has been made.
Alex Stephen, it's been a pleasure to have you not once but twice on the ID Boxing live reaction. Well, the live show throughout, it's turned into a reaction to the news that the show has been postponed as per the co-statement that you just referred to there, postponed with a view to litigation against the British Boxing Board of Control by Matchroom Boxing and Wasserman. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Riath over there who broke the story.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex. So I
Breaking
think
news, bruv. You see, I think everybody's getting up to go. I'm not sure what's happening right now, but everybody's going up the stairs.
yeah, we've got a reporter there, but we'll be up shortly. Yeah, we
Press
I
conference,
think
bruv.
are going to be winding down now the live reaction
Come
or the
on.
live stream that we've had here for about 3
20
hours
hours,
or
bruv.
so.
20 hours, bruv. Big man team.
So the legs are,
My
are quite
condition is
shaky.
mad, bruv. I told you, look, bruv. 12 rounds right now, bruv. It's mad team.
Yeah, so we're
Big
going
man team, we're going
to be
upstairs, bro.
logging off here to all
Come
of you
on.
who have tuned in throughout this live stream. Look, I think it's fair to say that this is a disappointing end to what was a very, very important week for British boxing and a fight that we were all very much looking forward to. I think the general consensus is from the people that we've spoken to, Castillo, that the right decision has been made, pending a thorough investigation into Conor Benn. He has the right, of course, to have this investigation into finding out what caused the adverse analytical finding. He may be vindicated. We wait to see what happens with that. But from me, Rob Tebbutt from Castillo,
Come
the
on.
main event.
Big man ting.
Thank you all so much
Thank
for
you lot for
hanging
tuning
around.
in, man. You get me?
We're gonna go
10,000
get some
strong,
food.
better than the Ops, bruv. You get me? Best boxing channel you'll ever see, bruv. Big men team.
Thanks so much. We're gonna see you next time. Tune into ID Boxing, like, comment, and subscribe. Big